Something in ancient history refuses to stay settled, not because it is lost, but because it does not fit. Across excavated foundations and fractured stone corridors, archaeologists continue to uncover structures whose scale, geometry, and placement raise uncomfortable questions. Precision without advanced tools, astronomical alignment without modern instruments, engineering decisions that seem to anticipate knowledge centuries ahead of their time. These are not myths. They are measurable anomalies preserved in rock. Every excavation adds data, yet some answers drift further away. The deeper we analyze, the clearer one truth becomes. The ancient world was not simple, primitive, or linear. It was complex, experimental, and in some cases, disturbingly advanced. What if the real mystery isn't what vanished, but what was deliberately forgotten? Hidden deep within the mist-covered mountains of the remote Narin region, where the Kyrgyz highlands stretch endlessly, and time seems frozen among stone and cold winds, the ancient structure known as Tash Rabat emerges like a riddle that has never been solved. Its moss-covered, stone-vaulted architecture, sitting at an altitude of more than 3,500 meters above sea level, does not match any typical architectural model of the region, nor does it resemble the well-documented caravanserais along the Silk Road. Tash Rabat appears at once like a solitary fortress, an isolated monastery, and a remote resting station, yet still fails to perfectly fit any of these definitions. It is here at this intersection of history, archaeology, and conjecture that one of Central Asia's greatest ancient mysteries resides. What do you think Tash Rabat truly was, an ancient monastery, a secret fortress, or something entirely different that we have yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The question of when Tash Rabat was built has long been a central point of controversy. Some researchers argue that the structure might date back to the 9th or 10th century, during a period when Buddhist monasteries and Nestorian Christian communities still existed sporadically along southern Kyrgyz trade routes. The small enclosed rooms, symmetrical layout, and complete isolation from settlements suggest a religious foundation rather than a resting place for merchants. However, later documents place Tash Rabat in the 15th century, associating it with the era of Timur and his successors, who expanded caravanserais across the Silk Road. The issue is that no written sources are conclusive, leaving Tash Rabat suspended outside the established timeline, an outsider in history belonging fully to no specific era. Examining its construction techniques makes its strangeness even more apparent. The stone vaults are built from large slabs fitted so precisely that mortar seems unnecessary. Such craftsmanship is usually seen in major urban religious structures, rarely in an isolated mountain valley with minimal signs of human habitation. Some scholars wonder whether the builders were wandering monks, a specially coordinated group of skilled stonemasons, or a community with religious motivations requiring precision. What is certain is that Tash Rabat's architectural sophistication far surpasses what is expected of a sparsely populated region with harsh climate and limited commercial development. The geographic setting of Tash Rabat further enhances the sense of strategic intent. The structure stands where a narrow valley opens directly onto an ancient trade route, the very path caravans would follow. Yet its placement does not perfectly suit the needs of a typical caravanserai, which would require wide space, consistent water supply, and easy access for livestock. Instead, Tash Rabat resembles a checkpoint, a lookout station, or a religious complex deliberately secluded from the world. Archaeologists frequently describe the interior rooms as ritual chambers or meditation spaces unsuitable for the bustling, noisy life of traders traveling with large quantities of goods. One of the most surprising findings is the complete absence of evidence related to daily life. A proper caravanserai should contain cooking areas, fuel storage, large stables, drainage systems, and numerous artifacts tied to trade. Yet excavations at Tash Rabat have revealed no kitchen remains, no signs of tethering animals, no pottery shards, no storage vessels, no tools, nothing that indicates routine commercial activity. This raises the possibility that Tash Rabat was not used as a daily resting stop, but perhaps as a seasonal site, a ritual site, or a facility used by a select organized group with a purpose beyond lodging. Several rooms inside Tash Rabat are unusually dark, windowless, and connected to corridors through narrow openings. Their design suggests secretive purposes, perhaps the storage of important objects, the confinement of individuals, or the performance of religious rituals requiring silence and isolation. Some corridors lead to underground chambers that remain unexplained, reinforcing the impression of a spiritual fortress rather than a commercial stopover. Yet the greatest mystery, and the one that makes Tash Rabat more compelling than any other site, is the central question: who built it and for what purpose? To this day, no scholar has produced a definitive answer. Every hypothesis contains logical strengths but also irreparable gaps. The first hypothesis proposes that Tash Rabat was an ancient Buddhist monastery in the final phase of Buddhism's expansion along the Silk Road. This idea fits the quiet enclosed rooms and symmetrical layout. However, no Buddha statues, no religious pottery, and no artistic remains have been found. If it truly was a monastery, why did all religious artifacts disappear without a trace? The second hypothesis suggests a Nestorian Christian monastery, as this tradition is known for constructing secluded monastic complexes with architectural similarities to Tash Rabat. But again, no crosses inscriptions or Christian artifacts have been discovered. A third theory views Tash Rabat as a secret fortress or checkpoint, protecting a section of the trade network. While the strategic location supports this idea, the structure lacks fortified walls, weapons storages, or signs of defensive activity. It feels ceremonial rather than militaristic. Between these competing theories lies the vast uncertainty that deepens the enigma. The structure raises not only the question of function, but also of identity. Who had the skill, resources, and determination to build such a complex monument in a desolate environment? There is no evidence of a nearby kingdom, no collapsed ancient city, no population density that could have supplied massive labor. The existence of Tash Rabat is not merely architectural, it is the remnant of a vision or mission, now lost to history. Some believe it was built by a secretive religious group intent on leaving no trace of themselves. Others imagine it as an elite refuge used by emissaries or high-status travelers requiring absolute safety. Still others speculate that it may be the last surviving testimony of a vanished community, one capable of advanced engineering, yet unknown to written history. Regardless of the truth, Tash Rabat still stands weathering centuries of mountain storms. Its stone vaults remain intact. Its dark corridors preserve their silence. And within that silence, the question, who built it and for what purpose, continues to echo, defying every effort to solve it. The Zapotec Monte Alban Danzantes figures are among the strangest ancient mysteries of Mesoamerica, a vast collection of hundreds of stone reliefs depicting human figures in puzzling states, closed eyes, twisted limbs, expressions that appear simultaneously pained, unconscious, or engaged in some ritual modern people cannot fully comprehend. Although today they are called danzantes, meaning dancers, the lines, body postures, anatomical detailing, and accompanying glyphs completely contradict such a simple interpretation. Instead, they open a world of mysteries involving warfare, sacrifice, ecstatic rituals, and above all, an artistic sophistication centuries ahead of its time. At Monte Alban, the ancient Zapotec capital built atop a mountain overlooking the entire Oaxaca Valley, the Danzantes lie scattered across walls, temple platforms, and passageways, as if narrating a story that modern humans lack the language to understand. And it is here that researchers discovered the strangest fact of all. Zapotec art seems far beyond what a civilization of that era should have been able to achieve. How do you think the Zapotec were able to create such sharp carvings and perfectly balanced human proportions? Share your theory in the comments below. The mystery of the Danzantes begins with the human figures carved into stone. Each figure has a distinct face, eyes tightly closed or portrayed as lifeless. Their bodies appear limp in unnatural ways, feet rotated outward, arms hanging down flat chests, and in some cases, abdominal lines suggesting exposed internal organs. This has led many archaeologists to believe they are sacrificial prisoners rather than dancers. Yet what challenges modern understanding even more is not the subject matter, but the level of artistry. These stones possess a level far beyond what would normally be expected from a civilization more than 2,000 years ago. This is what astonishes scholars: the precision of the incisions, the anatomical proportions, the geometric composition, and the carving techniques of the Danzantes do not match the technological limitations of their time. Zapotec artisans created incisions sharp as blades, deep yet balanced, maintaining consistent width across entire figures. Some stones exceed a meter in height, yet the body proportions remain remarkably uniform across hundreds of carvings. This indicates a standardized measuring system or artistic canon, though no evidence exists that the Zapotec possessed metal tools hard enough to achieve such fine lines. The flowing curves around arms, legs, chests, and faces follow geometric rules that feel strikingly modern, almost like the linear art styles of much later civilizations. Upon close examination, many researchers have admitted that such deep, clean lines seem impossible to execute using only primitive stone tools. The straight cuts, even carving depth, and controlled force applied to the stone suggest a carving technique or tool material still unidentified today. This alone makes the Danzantes an anomaly in the history of ancient art. Beyond technique, their ahead-of-time quality also appears in the way human bodies are composed. Though the figures seem twisted, collapsing, or semi-motionless, each composition is perfectly balanced within the stone surface. None of the figures are disproportionate or awkwardly shaped. Strikingly, the emotional intensity from the curvature of the bodies to the limpness of the limbs is conveyed through minimal yet precise lines, creating an impact so strong that modern viewers still feel their emotional weight after more than 2 millennia. This is minimalist art, requiring extraordinary skill, a capability many contemporary civilizations had not yet developed. Accompanying glyphs carved beside some Danzantes deepen the mystery even further. These represent one of the earliest writing systems in the Americas, yet remain only partially deciphered. The glyphs may record the names of sacrificed individuals, describe military victories, or convey religious messages the Zapotec intended to preserve on stone. However, the undeciphered language leaves all interpretations uncertain. Without understanding the script, we cannot determine whether the Danzantes depict historical records, ritual codes, or shamanic trance states. Another mystery lies in their overwhelming number. Over 800 Danzantes have been found. This massive quantity raises questions. Why would the Zapotec invest such immense time and resources to create hundreds of human figures sharing a unified style, yet each represented as an individual portrait? If they were prisoners, it implies recording each person something extremely rare in ancient art, which typically avoids individualization. If they were part of a ritual, why carve them into the architectural heart of the city, a symbol of power? And why do the figures look dead or unconscious? Their twisted poses resemble bodies restrained after death, or symbolic movements representing the soul departing the physical form. Some modern scholars believe these are ritual postures depicting shamans in altered states entering the spirit world. Others disagree, arguing that the anatomical incisions prove these were victims of sacrifice. Regardless of interpretation, one fact is undeniable. The artistic quality of the carvings is astonishingly advanced. While most early Mesoamerican art is symbolic and less focused on anatomy, the Zapotec appear to have developed an entirely different approach, one emphasizing movement expression and realistic bodily structure. The natural curves, proportional bodies, and individualized facial features reflect a sophisticated artistic mindset reminiscent of later civilizations like the Maya or Mixtec, even though the Danzantes predate them. This raises the question, could this ancient civilization have reached a level of artistic development that history has not fully acknowledged? Some researchers suggest the Danzantes form a visual language system used to document political conquest, much like other civilizations use stone stelae to record victories. If true, the artistic mastery would serve as a declaration of power. Yet contradictions remain. If they were prisoners, why portray them with such individualized detail? If spiritual, why include anatomical incisions? If purely artistic, why maintain absolute stylistic consistency across hundreds of stones? All clues lead back to the greatest mystery. The stone carving techniques used by the Zapotec seem beyond any known technological capability attributed to them. These works are not only beautiful, they testify to a level of aesthetic intelligence and craftsmanship that defies current understanding. The Danzantes are therefore not merely ancient carvings. They are fragments of a civilization that transformed stone into a medium for storytelling, communication, political authority, and spirituality, woven into an artistic style both minimalistic and powerful, far ahead of its era. And because we still do not fully understand their meaning, cannot explain their carving techniques, cannot read their glyphs, and cannot place them into a definitive historical context, the Zapotec Monte Alban Danzantes figures remain an unsolved mystery. These stone figures still stand today as if whispering about an art that surpassed its time, a message long lost, and a civilization whose surface we have only just begun to uncover. In the harsh desert expanses of the Sinai Peninsula, where one would never expect a center of religious or cultural activity, stands one of the most mysterious monuments of ancient Egypt, the Sinai Serabit el-Khadim Temple. Hidden atop a plateau of fractured stone, the temple is dedicated to the goddess Hathor, the deity of turquoise music, joy, and beauty. Yet remarkably, it bears none of the architectural features typical of Egyptian temples. Instead of perfect symmetry, aligned columns, or grand ceremonial halls, Serabit el-Khadim resembles a structure patched together through centuries, with each era adding a room, a corridor, or a small sanctuary forming a labyrinth of stone imbued with the traces of ancient rituals long buried by time. Placed in a barren region where water is scarce and survival difficult, the temple's very existence appears illogical. The Egyptians did not build temples randomly. They chose sites with symbolic or sacred significance. So what compelled them to construct one of the largest Hathor temples in a nearly uninhabitable desert? The most common explanation points to the presence of turquoise mines, the blue-green stone associated with Hathor. Yet upon closer examination, it becomes clear that the scale of rituals, the number of reliefs, and the centuries-long use of the temple far exceed the needs of a mere administrative center for miners. More than 3 millennia of history passed through this place. Mining expeditions, religious processions, and officials left their marks. And yet, paradoxically, Egyptian historical records barely describe the temple at all. What remains are fragmented inscriptions, a few notes about offerings to Hathor, and numerous stone stelae commemorating different mining groups. This leaves Serabit el-Khadim a blank spot in Egyptian history, used but not documented, existing but never fully explained. It is here in this forgotten place that humanity uncovered one of its greatest enigmas, the Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions, the writing system believed to be the direct ancestor of the Phoenician alphabet, and from there, Greek Latin and the modern alphabet used by billions today. In other words, the rough carvings on stone in a remote turquoise mine may be the very root of our alphabet. The mystery is not simply that writing appears here, but why here? Who created it? What drove these early signs to take shape in a form that reflects the structure of future alphabets? Proto-Sinaitic does not resemble Egyptian hieroglyphs, complex, symbolic, and multi-layered. Its symbols are simpler, more phonetic than pictorial, and their arrangement suggests a functional linguistic system. Although some signs borrow imagery from hieroglyphs, their usage is completely different. Scholars thus propose that the script was not invented by Egyptians, but perhaps by local miners or Semitic-speaking groups who interacted with Egyptian inscriptions and simplified them into a phonetic system. Yet an unresolved question lingers. Why did this system first appear at Serabit el-Khadim, rather than in densely populated Semitic regions? Was Sinai a crossroads between Egypt and an unidentified ancient culture? And was this interaction powerful enough to spark a revolutionary innovation, the birth of the alphabet? Some linguists argue that Proto-Sinaitic was a spontaneous invention by illiterate laborers who needed a quick, memorable way to record information simpler than hieroglyphs. But this explanation seems too convenient. The repeated patterns in the carvings, the underlying logic, and the structured symbolism suggest intentional design, not random marks scratched by untrained hands. Some symbols even show signs of high abstraction, uncommon in early writing systems. This raises a deeper question. Could a group of miners with limited education have created a system of writing without guidance from a more sophisticated intellectual tradition? Serabit el-Khadim opens the possibility that the region once hosted or interacted with a forgotten civilization. Archaeological findings indicate the presence of unidentified populations' pottery that does not match Egyptian styles, carvings unlike any known Near Eastern culture. Parts of the temple architecture also evoke prehistoric forms, ignoring established Egyptian building norms. The turquoise mining tunnels surrounding the temple extend in tangled networks, expanding into chambers and caverns still unexplored. Some passages were sealed in antiquity. Others descend so deep that modern technology cannot yet access them. Some scholars believe untouched sanctuaries or ritual chambers beneath Serabit may still contain Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions waiting to be discovered. The paradox of Serabit el-Khadim is that despite its monumental importance in the story of writing, it has been largely forgotten by both Egypt and the modern world. Unlike Luxor or Karnak, restored and celebrated Serabit remains neglected. Many inscriptions have eroded, stelae have toppled without restoration, and almost no systematic excavation has been conducted in decades. Some researchers even suggest history has avoided mentioning Serabit too prominently because it holds clues that could overturn our understanding of how writing and civilization developed. Unlike other temples with clear architectural structure and defined religious purpose, Serabit feels like a multi-layered palimpsest, a fusion of beliefs from different eras. The goddess Hathor appears in unusual forms here, sometimes accompanied by symbols not seen in mainstream Egyptian religion, sometimes resembling deities of mountains or guardians of minerals. This reinforces the theory that Serabit was not merely an Egyptian temple, but a convergence point of multiple ancient belief systems, many of which disappeared before being recorded. Amid all its mysteries, Proto-Sinaitic remains the most significant. In this remote place, far from political or religious centers, the seed of a linguistic revolution emerged. Here, writing broke free from complex pictorial systems and became a simplified phonetic tool that would define all future alphabets. Its appearance is like a fracture in history, where something new began quietly unnoticed, only to reshape humanity millennia later. And yet we still do not know who created it, where they came from, or why Serabit el-Khadim was the birthplace of such a transformative idea. Serabit el-Khadim is not merely the ruin of an ancient turquoise mine, nor merely a Hathor temple in the desert. It is a hidden chapter in human history, where crude carvings on stone possess the power to change civilization's trajectory. Though thousands of years have passed, the temple still stands desolate, yet proud, as if guarding the answers to the origins of writing, the lost cultures that touched Sinai, and the true reason this barren landscape once held profound significance. Until the tunnels are fully explored, the walls fully read, and the Proto-Sinaitic script entirely deciphered, Serabit el-Khadim will remain one of the greatest enigmas of Egypt and of humanity. In your opinion, is the Proto-Sinaitic script at Serabit el-Khadim the invention of miners, a product of cultural interaction, or evidence of a vanished civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Beneath the massive round burial mounds of ancient Gyeongju, where the soil has settled under thousands of years of accumulated dust, the golden crowns of the Silla kingdom emerge like silent witnesses to a once radiant civilization that the modern world still struggles to fully understand. Unlike any other royal regalia in the ancient world, these crowns possess not only the elegance of imperial authority, but also a series of unanswered questions surrounding their craftsmanship, symbolism, and origins. Among the countless mysteries they hold, the most astonishing and the most scientifically perplexing is that they were crafted from solid gold, yet are so impossibly thin that they seem to challenge both physical limits and the technological capabilities of ancient artisans. Gold is naturally soft, easily bent and deformed, yet more than 1 millennium ago, the Silla people managed to hammer it into unimaginably thin sheets, then cut, bend, decorate, carve branches, and suspend curved jade beads, all with a level of refinement that even modern goldsmiths acknowledge with awe. In museums where Silla crowns are displayed today, many visitors cannot believe they are viewing genuine artifacts, as the extreme thinness and razor-sharp precision of each cut seem more like the result of laser technology than the work of a 5th century civilization. Why do you think the Silla people were able to craft gold that was impossibly thin? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Many Silla crowns have sections with a thickness of less than 1 millimeter, and some areas are thinner than half a millimeter. The paradox lies in the fact that such a complex structure, with branches rising toward the sky, continuously curving forms, and attached embossed gold plates, should have easily torn, snapped, or deformed during the crafting process. Yet every detail remains perfect, sharp, and unchanged after more than 1,000 years underground. Metallurgists have attempted to recreate this ultra-thin gold working technique using traditional methods, but the results consistently produce weaker samples, more brittle, more prone to cracking, and unable to bend as far as the sheets created by the Silla artisans. So what technique did they use? Did they possess a lost method of metalworking? Or did they inherit knowledge from a group of nomadic craftsmen migrating across the Eurasian continent? All of it remains speculation. Most striking is the precision with which the crown's tree-shaped symbols, believed by many scholars to represent the world tree, were cut from gold. The edges are sharp like paper, the right angles perfectly defined, and the tiny grooves show no deviation from the axis of symmetry. Some details are so small that only under modern magnification can the incredibly fine parallel engraving lines be seen, resembling marks left by CNC machinery. Yet such technology did not exist in antiquity. So what exactly was happening in Silla during the 5th and 6th centuries? Alongside the tree-shaped forms are deer-shaped branches, ancient shamanic symbols representing the king's connection to the spirit world. Surprisingly, these were cut directly from gold sheets, not cast, requiring near-perfect control. Cutting thin gold is difficult enough. Cutting it into symmetrical repeating curved shapes without tearing or wrinkling is extraordinary. The Silla craftsmen seem to understand gold at the microscopic level, knowing exactly how much force it could withstand, when to heat it, when to cool it, when to press, and when to release. This was not merely craftsmanship. It bordered on materials science, a form of scientific knowledge at least 1,000 years ahead of its time. The mystery deepens when examining purity. Several crowns are made from gold that is nearly 99% pure, an astonishing figure. While many civilizations required hundreds of years to refine their metallurgical techniques to such a level, Silla seems to have mastered it early. But where did this pure gold come from? Although the Korean peninsula has gold deposits, none are known to be large enough to sustain the production of massive royal regalia. Some theories suggest importation from Siberia or Manchuria, where nomadic tribes traded gold. Others propose that Silla controlled a secret trade network extending as far as Central Asia. Yet no clear evidence has emerged. Structurally, the crowns raise even more questions. A Silla crown consists of 3 main parts: the front section with tree-shaped branches, the rear section with deer-shaped branches, and the body adorned with numerous curved jade beads, known as gogok symbols of vitality and spiritual power. When assembled, this already thin structure should easily deform, yet it stands upright with surprising stability. Researchers suggest that Silla artisans may have known how to strengthen gold through repeated cold working and hammering, creating microscopic crystalline reinforcement, but the full technique remains unreproduced. It is also significant that no historical records describe Silla kings wearing these crowns in life. There are no illustrations, no carvings, no written accounts. All known examples come from burial mounds. This suggests that the crowns were not used for daily or ceremonial wear, but served exclusively for spirit realm rituals, functioning as tools for for the king's transition between the human world and the spiritual world. When illuminated, the thin golden branches shimmer as though vibrating with ethereal light, giving some viewers the impression that the crowns were created not only through craftsmanship, but through deep religious intention, where art and spirituality merge. The enigma expands further. These golden crowns appear only in Silla. They do not exist in Baekje or Goguryeo, two contemporaneous and equally advanced kingdoms. This implies that Silla followed a distinct ideological, symbolic, and technological path independent of Chinese or Japanese influence. Were the crown makers descendants of northern nomadic craftsmen, or was this a uniquely Silla tradition that reached its peak and then disappeared without leaving any trace? No one knows. All that remains are the crowns themselves, silent, radiant enigmas that have rested beneath the earth for 15 centuries. The arrangement of motifs on the crowns reflects a remarkable understanding of mathematics. The symmetry of the branches, the spacing of the jade beads, and the alignment of hanging ornaments all follow precise rules. Archaeologists have found correspondences between these patterns and astronomical concepts such as 3 realms, 5 directions, or 9 heavens. This was no random artistic choice. It was intentional design by people who deeply understood the metaphysical meaning behind every form. And given how thin the gold is, even the slightest measurement error would have ruined the entire structure. Yet the Silla artisans achieved flawless perfection. When all elements are considered the impossibly thin gold, the advanced cutting methods, the near-perfect purity, the symmetrical and symbolic design, and their mysterious appearance only in tombs, one must acknowledge that the Silla royal gold crowns are far more than ornamental royal artifacts. They are a challenge issued to humanity, evidence that in ancient Gyeongju existed a level of craftsmanship and intellectual sophistication far beyond what recorded history suggests. No matter how hard scientists try to decipher them, the golden crowns remain there gleaming in silence, an enigma that refuses to open, a reminder that much about the Silla civilization remains unknown. The Menga Dolmen alignment has always made archaeologists pause, sometimes even fall silent, whenever the question is raised: how could a community living more than 5,000 years ago construct a monument so enormous that it surpasses all expected standards of its era? When people speak of Menga, they are not simply referring to a ritual dolmen or a prehistoric tomb. Menga is a physical challenge, a technological paradox, a demonstration that ancient humans possessed skills we have not yet fully understood. What makes Menga so different, so controversial, and impossible for experts to dismiss is the sheer scale of its stones, blocks so large that no simple explanation can satisfactorily account for them. Many stones in Menga weigh from several tens of tons to more than 180 tons. The largest capstone is estimated to weigh nearly 200 tons, equivalent to a small modern building. There were no wheels, no metal pulleys, no engines, no advanced construction techniques. And yet Neolithic people transported these stones from distant quarries, raised them, and set them precisely to form a vast interior chamber, tight, stable, and enduring over millennia. This is why Menga is regarded as one of the largest, heaviest, and most technically astonishing dolmens ever discovered in Europe. How do you think Neolithic people were able to move and erect stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons, like those at the Menga Dolmen? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When stepping inside Menga, the first sensation is not antiquity, it is awe. The massive stone roof above your head, the upright pillars forming the walls, and the wide artificial space evoke the atmosphere of a mythic cavern. Each stone seems to defy gravity, time, and even modern imagination. Although archaeologists today can simulate stone transport using wooden rollers or inclined planes, these models still fail to fully explain how ancient people solved issues of friction terrain, slope wood durability, collective pulling power, and most importantly, the precision required to ensure the stones aligned perfectly and did not shift over thousands of years. Yet the mystery of Menga does not end with the size of its stones. The structure features an orientation pursued by almost no other European megaliths. It does not face the rising sun like countless prehistoric monuments, but instead points directly toward the summit of Peña de los Enamorados, a mountain shaped like the face of a giant reclining human. This orientation is neither accidental nor coincidental. It was intentionally achieved through careful observation of the landscape and precise directional calibration. This greatly reinforces the theory that the builders of Menga were not merely primitive farmers stacking stones, but engineers, architects, and sky and land observers possessing knowledge far superior to what we typically attribute to their time. Returning to the central point, the absurd scale of Menga. Erecting a stone of more than 100 tons is difficult, even with modern machinery. But prehistoric people did not raise just one stone, they raised dozens. Many of the capstones were positioned atop 3 rows of enormous supporting pillars. The thickness, length, and width of these stones raise a fundamental question. Could such a structure truly have been built by a small community with limited resources, or does it imply the existence of a far more complex social network than we imagine? Some scholars believe hundreds of individuals must have worked for years to complete the monument. Yet if that is true, how did they maintain consistent precision, measurement accuracy, and structural coherence? These questions remain unanswered. The mystery deepens with the presence of a vertical well almost 20 meters deep inside Menga. Why would a megalithic monument include a well? How was it dug? Why would ancient builders construct something so difficult within a structure that was already extraordinarily challenging? If Menga were merely a tomb, the well would be completely unnecessary. If it were a ritual site, why create such a hazardous depth? And if it were related to astronomy, at what moment would sunlight enter the shaft? And what meaning would that hold? Every proposal remains speculation. No theory possesses enough evidence to stand as fact. The mysteries of Menga layer upon one another, and its monumental size becomes the first, thickest, and most impenetrable veil. All other oddities, the mountain alignment, the well, the expanding corridor circle back to the reality that the builders needed exceptional capabilities from the very beginning of construction. The main chamber of Menga stretches more than 25 meters in length, covered by roof stones that even modern construction firms would hesitate to install without detailed engineering calculations. Yet prehistoric builders had no architectural diagrams, no mathematical load-bearing models. How did they know the structure would not collapse? Some researchers suggest that ancient people possessed experiential knowledge about stone weight distribution. But this theory cannot account for the level of refinement seen in their stone selection, placement accuracy, or spatial design features sturdy enough to survive thousands of years. One often overlooked but critical detail is the uniform quality of Menga's stones. This implies that the builders did not simply gather stones from nature, they selected them carefully, perhaps even quarrying from specific geological sources. The effort required would have exceeded the capacity of a small group. Thus, Menga becomes evidence of a far more complex society with labor division, technical specialization, and a belief system powerful enough to mobilize hundreds of workers for many years. Looking back, some scholars even suggest that Menga might have been the pyramid of the Iberian Peninsula, not in shape, but in scale difficulty of construction and symbolic meaning. And if ancient people could build a dolmen this enormous, what else might they have accomplished that we have not yet discovered? This question leads archaeologists to view Menga not as an isolated anomaly, but as a fragment of a much larger picture, one that hints at a lost body of ancient knowledge. For thousands of years, Menga has stood facing the human-shaped mountain, acting as a bridge between humans and nature, between life and death, between visible knowledge and the knowledge buried beneath time. Whatever its ultimate purpose, one truth cannot be denied. Menga proves that ancient humans were far more capable than traditional history once suggested. The existence of stones weighing hundreds of tons, arranged in a cohesive, durable structure built half a millennium before the Egyptian pyramids, forces us to acknowledge enormous gaps in our understanding of technological development. The Menga Dolmen alignment, therefore, is not just a stone monument. It is a reminder that what we know is only the surface, and beneath it lies the vast lost knowledge and forgotten craftsmanship of our ancestors. The Black Obelisk astronomical alignments has always been regarded as one of the strangest enigmas of the Neo-Assyrian period, not only because of the historical narratives carved on its four stone faces, but also due to the questions surrounding astronomy symbolism materials and craftsmanship that far exceed what we typically attribute to a civilization nearly 3 millennia old. When observing this obelisk, one senses something not merely commemorative, not simply a record of conquests or religion, and certainly not just court art. It resembles a multi-layered, coded structure in which the carved scenes appear arranged according to a logic belonging neither to politics nor rituals, but seemingly connected to the movements of the sky. Its four faces, with 20 scenes divided horizontally, follow no artistic pattern previously seen in Assyrian art, giving the impression that all were executed according to a lost astronomical order. Many scholars have noted similarities between the obelisk's layout and Mesopotamian calendar schemes, though none match perfectly, intensifying the mystery of its true purpose. Do you think the four-sided structure and the arrangement of 20 scenes on the Black Obelisk truly reflect a lost astronomical system? Or are they simply artistic choices within Assyrian court tradition? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Recent studies attempting to reconstruct the obelisk's original placement have proposed a startling hypothesis. It may once have been aligned with the sunrise at the winter solstice or the sunset at the summer solstice. But because no ancient document records its exact original position, everything depends on simulation. Some archaeoastronomers also point out that the carved animals, bulls, lions, antelopes, and hunting birds, may correspond to constellations familiar in the Babylonian-Assyrian celestial system. What remains most puzzling is why these scenes appear in repetitive cycles with minor variations in posture or head direction details, meaningless in a tribute record, but potentially significant if they were epoch markers, symbols that track the position of the moon or planets during a specific year. Yet all these hypotheses, astronomical, calendrical, or symbolic, are merely an outer shell. The deepest and most controversial layer lies in the material and carving technique of the Black Obelisk itself. This is the most irrational point, and the place where Assyrian technology seems to exceed its known limitations. The obelisk is made from an unusually hard black stone, with density and durability comparable to high-quality basalt. The stone is so tough that even modern steel tools struggle to remove tiny sections as noted by specialists. And yet the Assyrians, as far as we know, possessed only bronze and rudimentary iron tools. So how did they produce ultrafine incisions, only a few millimeters wide, yet extending for meters without cracking, chipping, or vibration marks? The grooves are deep, decisive, perfectly symmetrical under light examination, and most astonishingly, show no signs of grinding or final polishing, something nearly unavoidable with any manual abrasion technique of the ancient world. Even more perplexing is the uniformity of the carvings. The parallel lines deviate by no more than half a millimeter, something difficult to achieve even with modern measuring tools. Material analysts have used microscopes to inspect the cut surfaces and found a kind of uniform cut texture with no known mechanism, suggesting the use of some tool or technique no longer extant. There are no saw marks, no chisel chatter, no uneven surfaces from the pressure of a human hand. Everything is too clean, almost mechanical. This raises a troubling question. Could Assyrian stoneworking technology have been far more advanced than we assume? Or was the obelisk created by a specialized group of artisans whose exceptional skills were never recorded in Assyrian history? Or worse still, are we mistakenly attributing to Assyria a monument that may originate from an older technical tradition, later absorbed into the empire without documentation? This extraordinary skill is not limited to the incisions, but extends to the obelisk's overall geometry. All four faces are nearly perfectly equal, their edges sharp, as if cut by a high-strength metal blade. The registers dividing the scenes are spaced with such precision that it is difficult to believe they were measured with rope or wooden rods. Each register contains compositions of figures, animals, and tributes arranged in recurring patterns, but never perfectly duplicated, as though the carver were recording a cycle of events with variations at each phase. This greatly strengthens the hypothesis of a secret astronomical calendar. The tribute of Jehu scene, believed to be the earliest known depiction of an Israelite king, does not appear in the central or most prestigious position, as one would expect, in a political record. Instead, it lies at the intersection of two registers, a position some archaeoastronomers argue may correspond to where the ecliptic crosses a structural axis. If true, Jehu's kneeling is more than political symbolism. It may function as a time-marking symbol, signaling the start or end of an observational cycle. The more researchers examine it, the more the Black Obelisk diverges from conventional Assyrian artistic norms. It contains numerous repeated scenes with slight modifications that seem intentionally coded. Some experts believe each scene represents a month or a segment of lunar or planetary motion. But no surviving Mesopotamian text describes such a system. This leaves scholarship at an impasse. Either the Black Obelisk preserves evidence of a lost astronomical system, or our interpretations of its purpose are entirely misguided. After all the theories, political, religious, astronomical, calendrical, symbolic, the greatest question remains unresolved. Why does an outdoor monument exhibit carving precision beyond the technological capabilities of its time? If the Assyrians intended a propaganda monument, they did not need carvings so fine they are nearly invisible to the naked eye. If it were merely a record of achievements, they did not need such an extraordinarily hard, durable, and difficult stone. If it were simply art, why the cyclical repetition of motifs? None of it aligns. It is this impossibility of both material and technique, supposedly unattainable with bronze and primitive iron, that makes the Black Obelisk one of the greatest mysteries of Mesopotamian archaeology. It forces us to reconsider ancient technological proficiency, lost bodies of knowledge, and the possibility that humanity's technical history is far more complex than textbooks suggest. Perhaps we are seeing only the surviving fragment of a once vast technical tradition, or perhaps we are facing a lone remnant of an advanced astronomical and technical lineage never recorded. The Black Obelisk stands there cold, sharp-edged, its incisions inexplicable, as though waiting for someone who can finally read the language of stone, a language the ancients left behind, but the modern world has yet to understand. Among the oldest mysteries of the Andes, where misty valleys hide cultural layers that have lain silent for millennia, few structures puzzle archaeologists as deeply as the Kotosh Crossed Hands temple. Small, discreet, neither monumental like pyramids, nor magnificent like later Inca stone cities, the temple nonetheless possesses something that makes scholars question its very existence, a level of construction technology inconsistent with its era, even surpassing all presumed capabilities of pre-ceramic Andean societies. When viewing the ruins, many imagine they are looking at a structure refined in a much later period, yet carbon dating and stratigraphic analysis confirm one truth: Kotosh dates to 3000 to 2000 BC, an age when local societies should only have been building crude stone shelters and fragile mud walls. This contradiction has elevated Kotosh into one of the greatest architectural enigmas of ancient South America. With such an unexpectedly advanced construction technique for its time, what do you think is the most plausible explanation for the mystery of Kotosh? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. The temple consists of small ritual chambers where a sacred fire pit once stood and where the iconic crossed hands reliefs, the earliest known religious symbol in the Andes, were displayed. Yet even these symbolic elements do not astonish researchers as much as the way the temple walls were constructed. Built from small stones mixed with clay, the walls show none of the rough, primitive appearance expected of such early architecture. Instead, each layer of material is densely compacted, with high precision forming walls capable of resisting vibration, erosion, and deformation over thousands of years. The layout of stones, irregular, not aligned into neat rows like later Inca masonry, nonetheless creates a remarkably durable structure that has withstood Huánuco's harsh weather, heavy rains, strong winds, temperature fluctuations, and even geological tremors. Even more perplexing is that the walls of Kotosh are exceptionally straight, an almost unbelievable feature given the technical context of their era. There are no traces of metal tools, no evidence of scaffolding or advanced measuring methods. Yet the walls remain upright, even, and most impressively free from subsidence, despite surviving for over 4,000 years. Material science studies show that the walls function like a primitive honeycomb. Tiny voids, strategically distributed throughout the stone-clay mixture, allow the structure to flex slightly instead of cracking under pressure. This raises critical questions. Who taught the builders of Kotosh to understand material behavior at this level? And why would such knowledge be applied to a ceremonial complex rather than to domestic structures? As archaeologists investigated further, they discovered that the temple's walls were not only durable, but also astonishingly well finished. Some surfaces are so smooth, they appear to belong to a far more advanced architectural tradition. In several areas, clay was polished into a surface resembling primitive plaster, something not documented in any other pre-ceramic culture in Peru. The corners of the walls are skillfully shaped, yet sharp, not rounded by erosion. This means that even without sophisticated tools, the people of Kotosh possessed a complex method of material refinement that modern researchers still cannot fully explain. The mystery deepens with the discovery that Kotosh is not a single temple, but rather multiple temples built on top of one another. At the end of each ceremonial cycle, the inhabitants completely buried the previous temple with earth stones and sediments, then constructed a new one on top. This burial was entirely intentional. They did not destroy the old walls, but preserved them beneath a thick, compacted layer. This implies that their construction techniques had to be advanced enough to produce walls able to withstand compressive force without collapsing. Clearly, their understanding of structural mechanics was far greater than previously assumed. The people of Kotosh knew that a weak wall would shatter under burial pressure, but their walls did not. This strongly suggests that they carried knowledge not only of ritual architecture, but also of load-bearing principles and long-term preservation. Another puzzling detail, the Huánuco region contains a special clay-rich soil that, when mixed with crushed stone and properly compacted, becomes a form of natural concrete with impressive durability. To use it effectively, builders needed precise control of mixture ratios, moisture levels, compaction, strength, and curing time. Yet there is no evidence that such knowledge developed gradually. No prototype walls exist. No transitional experiments were found. At Kotosh, this technique appears fully formed from the very beginning, a rarity in the history of human technological development. Elsewhere, architectural sophistication emerges over centuries of refinement, but at Kotosh, it seems to have appeared suddenly, without precedent, as if the knowledge had fallen from the sky. Major civilizations such as Chavin and Moche, emerging thousands of years later, never used this same compaction wall technique. This only confounds scholars further. If Kotosh was the pioneer, why was its method not adopted? If the technique was inherited from a preceding civilization, where is the archaeological evidence of that culture? And if the method was created solely for ritual purpose, why invest so much effort into structural durability rather than aesthetics or symbolic meaning? One bold hypothesis proposes that the people of Kotosh viewed the endurance of temple walls as part of a spiritual cycle. Even when buried, the temple continued to exist beneath the earth, like a body of the sacred world, with each new structure built atop the last as part of a cosmological renewal. Yet no matter how compelling spiritual explanations do not answer the fundamental question. How could a pre-ceramic community possess such advanced construction knowledge today? When archaeologists step into the ruins of Kotosh and touch the walls that have stood for over 4 millennia, they often share the same sensation. The history of Andean architectural technology may have an unknown beginning, one not recorded in texts, myths, or cultural transitions. No later civilization continued these methods. What remains are only the walls that should not exist in this era, yet they do, standing as silent testimony that ancient people may have known far more than modern scholars assume. For this reason, Kotosh is not merely an archaeological site. It is a challenge to historical understanding, a symbol of how vast the gaps in our knowledge of the past truly are. And when one looks at these walls too early for their era, it becomes impossible not to wonder, did an even older knowledge system once exist only to vanish, leaving behind nothing but these timeless walls? The Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone. A small artifact carrying an enormous enigma has long been regarded as one of the most puzzling objects ever discovered in the northeastern United States. Although it is only the size of a small egg, the stone embodies craftsmanship, precision, and a level of technical execution far beyond what is typically attributed to the ancient indigenous cultures of New Hampshire. Since its accidental discovery in the year 1872, during the digging of a post hole near Lake Winnipesaukee, the artifact has stirred continuous debate among archaeologists, historians, and enthusiasts regarding its origin purpose and especially the techniques used in its creation. Externally, the Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone possesses an uncannily perfect form, balanced smooth and nearly symmetrical, which is already astonishing given that its primary material is quartzite, a stone with hardness approaching that of low-grade diamond. However, what elevates it from unusual to inexplicable are the ultra-precise drill holes created with a technique seemingly beyond the capabilities of ancient tools, a feature that perplexes even modern specialists. In your opinion, the ultra-precise drill holes on the Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone came from a lost ancient technology, an unknown advanced culture, or simply a misinterpreted modern artifact? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When examined closely, the surface of the stone reveals a series of enigmatic carvings, from human faces to symbols resembling corn, ears, noses, and mysterious circles, all executed with extraordinary refinement. But surpassing even these details is the system of deep, straight, smooth, and nearly perfectly uniform drill holes, one of the most shocking aspects of the stone's entire story. These holes are not mere voids created by chiseling or gouging. Instead, they clearly show signs of being produced by high-speed rotary equipment with walls that are exceptionally smooth, free from chipping, cracking, or rough tool marks, characteristics entirely inconsistent with drill holes made by ancient stone chisels. Some holes even run completely through the axis of the stone, forming an internal structure so intricate that even 19th-century artisans would struggle to reproduce it with ordinary hand tools. This raises a profound question. How could an ancient community, with no evidence of using advanced metal tools, drill into quartzite, an extremely hard material, with such remarkable precision? Closer analysis shows that the holes on the Mystery Stone are not only geometrically precise, but also display signs of thermal impact, suggesting they were produced using a heat-assisted drilling process, a technology that emerged only after the industrial era. Some researchers have speculated that the stone may have been drilled using a primitive copper bit combined with abrasive sand and persistent rotational motion. However, this hypothesis collapses under scrutiny. Quartzite is too hard to allow such perfectly smooth holes without destroying the drill bit. Known ancient techniques, such as bow drills or vertical spindle drills, cannot achieve the depth and precision exhibited by the Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone. Other experts propose that the object may originate from a culture with a more advanced technical capability than currently recognized, or that it may be an exotic artifact introduced through long-distance trade routes or cultural contact, not yet documented. Yet the main problem persists. No other artifacts or cultural evidence from prehistoric New England suggest the existence of such advanced stoneworking technology. What further deepens the mystery is the complete lack of contextual information surrounding the stone's discovery. There were no burial sites, no tools, and no associated materials that could help determine its date or cultural affiliation. It lay alone in the soil, as though it had been intentionally placed there long before its discovery, or conversely not long before the excavation occurred. This raises a pivotal question. Is the object truly ancient, or is it a finely crafted 19th-century artifact created by someone for unknown reasons, and then accidentally buried? If it is modern, why does the drilling technique exhibit such advanced precision? And why were the carvings made in a style unrelated to any known European artistic tradition? If it is ancient, who created it, with what tools, and for what purpose? Years later, when the New Hampshire Historical Society re-examined the stone, it accidentally cracked, exposing its internal structure. This drew renewed attention to the drill holes. Inside them, the stone revealed signs not only of abrasion, but also of intense thermal modification, indicating a technique far beyond the capabilities of indigenous stone tools. This detail lies at the heart of why the mystery stone is so contentious. Its drill holes do not match any documented technological ability in prehistoric New England. Some experts have proposed the idea of a lost technology, a once-existing technique not preserved in written or material records. Others more boldly suggest that the stone may belong to an unidentified civilization or be connected to trade networks far older and more complex than mainstream history acknowledges. The carvings add yet another layer of opacity to the object. Symbols resembling corn kernels, human faces' ears, and circular motifs do not align closely with any known stylistic traditions of Northeastern indigenous groups. This opens possibilities that the artifact may not have been a traditional ritual item, a burial object, or a talisman as commonly understood. It might have served as a marker of intertribal relations, a symbol of peace, a ceremonial object belonging to a now-lost tradition, or a symbolic artifact transcending regional cultural boundaries. All hypotheses are constrained by a critical fact: no comparable artifact has ever been found. Its uniqueness makes it extraordinarily difficult to classify, date, or culturally contextualize. This solitude has led some historians to suspect that the mystery stone might be a post-colonial creation. Yet this raises further questions. If a 19th century artisan crafted it, why employ drilling techniques close to modern industrial standards? Why carve symbols unrelated to European art? And why bury it without any documentation? For more than a century and a half, these questions remain unanswered. Today, the Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone remains one of the most debated archaeological artifacts in the United States. Every detail on its surface, every enigmatic carving, and most importantly, every ultra-precise drill hole evokes the sense that whoever created it possessed a technology beyond its time or an extraordinary level of craftsmanship difficult to reconcile with known histories. Despite extensive research, material analysis, and attempts to reconstruct the manufacturing process, the stone has revealed none of its secrets. Its silence, a small object, wordless yet profoundly challenging, has transformed the Winnipesaukee Mystery Stone into a symbol of unresolved archaeological mysteries and a reminder of the humility required when confronting artifacts that lie beyond the boundaries of established understanding. The Varna gold hoard origins is regarded as one of the most astonishing pieces of evidence for the capabilities of prehistoric humans. Because it is not merely the oldest gold treasure in the world, it also raises a series of questions that no one has been able to fully answer about the technological sophistication possessed by communities that lived more than 6 millennia ago. When modern archaeology first encountered the artifacts excavated from the Varna necropolis, the initial shock among researchers did not come from the quantity of gold, nor from the apparent luxury of items belonging to a seemingly simple society, but from the breathtaking level of craftsmanship, marks of fabrication that should not have existed in a stone Chalcolithic era culture. While great civilizations such as Mesopotamia or Egypt required centuries to perfect the art of metallurgy, Varna, a community with very limited historical records, suddenly displayed a nearly impossible skill set. They forged, welded, shaped, and polished gold with such precision that even modern goldsmiths find it astonishing. Ultra-thin gold sheets, measuring only fractions of a millimeter, were crafted with near-perfect symmetry. Necklaces, chest plates, and ornaments were embossed with evenly distributed force. Surfaces were polished until they reflected light with a soft sheen. microscopic details were created using methods that today would require specialized tools. All of this turns Varna into an archaeological paradox. How could a pre-literate, agriculturally simple society produce metalwork equal to or even exceeding civilizations that would not appear for thousands of years? In your opinion, what allowed a prehistoric society like Varna to achieve such an advanced and refined level of gold metallurgy far beyond what their era should have been capable of? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Materials analysis shows that the people of Varna employed a range of techniques: cold hammering, hot forging, controlled heating to increase the malleability of gold, and cooling processes to strengthen it. Some items demonstrate the use of pressure welding, an advanced technique that conventional scholarship usually assigns to much later periods in human history. This advancement raises a profound question. Did they invent such techniques themselves, or did they inherit knowledge from an even older, now vanished culture? The deeper researchers look, the clearer it becomes that many Varna artifacts possess a degree of sophistication completely incompatible with the social conditions of that era. Around 4,600 to 4,500 BCE, most of Europe still consisted of scattered farming communities where stone tools remained dominant. Yet Varna mastery over a soft metal like gold had already reached an elite level. This has led some scholars to propose the possible existence of lost metallurgical centers predating Varna cultures that might have passed down their knowledge. Others go further, suggesting that a prehistoric civilization once existed around the Black Sea, later submerged or displaced by climatic events, leaving behind only fragments of its technological legacy. But it was not only metallurgy that made Varna mysterious. The artifacts also reveal a remarkable aesthetic sensibility. Observing each piece, experts realized that the people of Varna did not create gold objects solely for ritual or symbolic purposes. They possessed a clear artistic vision. They understood symmetry, proportions, and how polished metal interacts with light to produce visual effects. In the richest graves, especially the burial of the man often referred to as the ruler of Varna, the sheer quantity of gold is overwhelming. Hundreds of ornaments, beads, necklaces, chest plates, and golden scepters. Yet the true significance lies not in the amount of gold, but in its extraordinary refinement, far beyond what scholars typically associate with that period. A society without writing had somehow achieved artistic standards and technical precision that force archaeologists to reconsider long-standing assumptions about the capabilities of prehistoric cultures. Another element that deepens the Varna mystery is the consistency across all gold artifacts. This uniformity indicates that goldworking in Varna was not carried out by isolated individuals, but was part of an organized production system. There were likely miners, refiners, designers, and most notably, high-level master artisans responsible for final shaping and finishing. This demonstrates that Varna had developed a surprisingly complex division of labor and may have formed specialized craft guilds, something considered far too early for European societies of this era. For decades, archaeologists have struggled with the question: how could such sophisticated craftsmanship disappear almost completely after the Varna culture collapsed? If it was a human-developed skill, it should have spread, evolved, or been inherited by neighboring groups. Yet, it did not. After Varna, goldworking of comparable quality does not reappear in Europe for millennia. Environmental, archaeological, and anthropological data suggest that Varna was unexpectedly wealthy, possibly due to trade networks linking the Balkans, Anatolia, and Central Europe. But even acknowledging their prosperity does not explain the sudden emergence of such advanced gold craftsmanship. No one knows why they needed to create perfectly executed gold artifacts, or what messages these objects were meant to convey. Some researchers believe gold served as the ultimate symbol of authority, representing social order and sacred legitimacy. The most refined pieces may have encoded symbolic meanings accessible only to the Vana elite. Others suggest the objects were not merely symbolic. Many pieces show signs of wear, indicating that Vana artisans understood how to reinforce gold for practical use, a level of functional craftsmanship far ahead of its time. When archaeologists discovered graves containing no human remains but filled with more gold than actual burials, the mystery deepened further. Were these symbolic graves dedicated to spiritual or ancestral figures, or evidence of a ritual practice that modern scholars can no longer comprehend? Whatever the explanation, gold craftsmanship remains central. It is clear that Vana used metal artistry to reinforce belief systems, power hierarchies, and social structure. At a time when most of Europe had not yet built permanent stone structures, Vana artisans were producing works so refined that even today their methods remain unclear. The abrupt disappearance of the Vana culture makes the story even more perplexing. There is no strong evidence of warfare, epidemic, or catastrophic natural events. Everything simply ends and goes silent. No culture afterward continued their metallurgical tradition. No artistic lineage followed their style. It is as if the bearers of this metallurgical knowledge vanished from the world, taking with them the answers to how a prehistoric society could reach such a technologically advanced level. And it is this silence, the silence of a lost technique, the silence of an unsolved mystery, that makes the Vana gold hoard origins one of the most challenging enigmas in modern archaeology, a technology too early, too refined, too advanced. So much so that few believe it could have existed in the historical context we thought we understood. Nestled quietly within the rocky valley of Yazilikaya, the colossal rock facade, known as the Phrygian Midas monument facade, rises like a stone gateway leading to a lost sacred world. Although there is no interior space behind it, the monument still bears the form of a grand temple, as if the Phrygians intended not to carve a structure one could enter, but a symbol one must behold. Standing before this nearly 17-meter-tall vertical rock face, one cannot help but wonder who created such an enormous facade. Why did they choose an isolated cliff in a remote valley? And why did they invest an astonishing level of precision into a monument that possesses no inside at all? These questions grow even more enigmatic when one realizes that most knowledge about the Phrygians, a civilization that once flourished and then faded, remains shrouded in darkness, preserved only through their silent, cold stone carvings. Among all those remnants, however, the Midas monument stands out not only for its scale or sacred symbolism, but especially for the system of carved geometric patterns on its surface, patterns so exquisitely executed that they surpass what people typically imagine was possible with early Iron Age tools. Given the near-perfect precision of the carvings on the Phrygian Midas monument facade, which explanation do you find more plausible? That the Phrygians possessed a level of technology far beyond what we currently understand, or that they used a specialized measuring and carving method that has since been lost to history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From afar, the monument resembles an immense stone-woven carpet, its surface covered with geometric motifs, repeating triangles, perfectly parallel lines, and sharply defined borders running along its edges. But as one approaches, the precision of each detail becomes astonishingly apparent. No carved line deviates, no segment cracks or tilts. Everything forms a perfectly harmonious whole, so refined that many archaeologists describe it as the most sophisticated two-dimensional architecture surviving from the Phrygians. What makes this even more remarkable is that the Phrygians did not possess refined steel tools or advanced measurement instruments, yet they managed to carve razor-sharp motifs into a hard rock wall with a precision that feels almost mechanical. Many hypotheses have been proposed to explain how the Midas monument achieved such extraordinary refinement. Some scholars argue that the Phrygians may have used iron tools harder than those of neighboring cultures, but this still does not explain the consistency of geometric motifs repeated hundreds of times with almost no deviation. Others believe they employed measurement systems based on tensioned cords, though erecting scaffolding nearly 20 meters high in the windy highlands would itself have been a major challenge, much less keeping carved lines from trembling out of alignment. Still more speculative theories propose that the Phrygians possessed a sacred proportional system, taught secretly among the priesthood devoted to the goddess Cybele, with craftsmen merely executing predetermined designs crafted by these keepers of knowledge. To this day, no definitive evidence fully explains the monument's seemingly ahead of its time stone carving expertise. Even more curious is that the carved motifs may not have been merely decorative. Many researchers note that the repeating patterns follow a certain rhythm, almost like musical movement translated into visual form. Some triangular motifs are arranged so that observers perceive a subtle vibration when sunlight shifts across the surface during different seasons. The long, vertical lines, seemingly simple, were likely designed to direct the viewer's gaze upward toward the top of the facade, where a sacred emblem might once have been placed, perhaps a statue of Cybele or another wooden or metal object now lost to time. Thus, the motifs were not just art, they functioned as instruments guiding human consciousness into a ritual state where one connected with the divine through sight, form, and light. Recreating the construction process of this monument remains a profound puzzle. The Phrygians would have needed a team of highly skilled craftsmen, a precise measurement system, and the ability to coordinate large-scale labor. But why would they invest such tremendous resources into a monument without interior space? Perhaps the sacredness for them did not lie inside a structure, but directly on the stone surface itself, where humans and gods met through carved imagery. Perhaps the Midas monument functioned as a kind of sacred window, a place where prayers were offered through geometric patterns symbolizing cosmic order. It is also possible that this was a site for outdoor rituals, similar to open-air sanctuaries found throughout ancient Anatolia, where the absence of interior chambers was not a limitation but an intentional design. Archaeologists have discovered that many carved lines were created using a layer-cutting technique. Rather than carving a line, once artisans repeatedly removed thin layers of the rock surface to achieve perfect flatness. This required not only skill, but great time and patience. A single mistake could ruin an entire motif. What compelled the Phrygians to devote such immense effort? It is highly possible that the motifs represented a sacred language, with each carved stroke serving as an act of devotion. In this sense, every chisel mark became a prayer, and the entire geometric tapestry became a stone scripture spanning tens of square meters. What makes this even more striking is that such an extreme level of refinement is not commonly found in other Phrygian structures. This suggests that the Midas monument was not merely a religious installation, it may have been the cultural and artistic apex of the entire civilization. Some scholars describe it as the Phrygian stone manifesto, expressing their understanding of geometry, spirituality, and symbolism in the purest form. Others have observed that the monument appears to be oriented toward the sunrise during specific times of the year, causing the motifs to illuminate in distinctive ways depending on the season. If true, the Midas monument was not simply a carved rock, but a ritual light instrument, a form of architecture that became fully alive only through its interaction with the sun, the supreme deity for many ancient cultures. Today, although the motifs remain, the tools are unknown, and the religious context has vanished, people can still feel the extraordinary finesse of ancient craftsmanship. The carved lines have endured through centuries of weathering, retaining a sharpness that makes some grooves look as though they were carved only yesterday, when the evening sun strikes them. Perhaps it is precisely this, beyond its era precision, this technique we still struggle to replicate convincingly, that forms the greatest mystery of the Midas monument. A mystery not confined to the past, but one that reflects humanity's desire to carve its most sacred ideals into stone, resisting the inevitable erosion of time. Within the forests and rocky cliffs of southern Illinois, the story of the Burroughs Cave artifacts has existed like a strange fracture in modern archaeology, a fracture no one can mend, for the evidence is abundant, the testimonies difficult to verify, and the truth always slipping out of reach. Everything began in the early 1980s, when Russell Burroughs claimed to have discovered a vast cave containing thousands of unusual artifacts, carved stone tablets, gold pieces, coins that matched no known civilization, and above all, countless carvings rendered in a strangely hybrid, artistic style. From that moment onward, Burroughs Cave became an uncanny mixture of legend, controversy, hope among supporters of ancient transoceanic contact, and the strong rejection of the traditional academic community. Do you think the origins of Burroughs Cave are real, or simply a fabricated tale? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. The artifacts said to come from this cave possess a peculiar beauty, yet also an unsettling quality. Many carved stone tablets display characters belonging to no known writing system, an off-the-record script as though created by a civilization that has never been documented. They are not Phoenician, not Egyptian, not Greek, and certainly not part of any indigenous American symbol set. They resemble fragments from multiple cultures blended together, as if their maker intentionally wanted to evoke the distant past without belonging to any specific historical context. Independent researchers often lean toward the possibility that these are products of modern imagination, yet they also admit there are simply too many artifacts to easily accept the idea that a single person could fabricate them all. Even more shocking are the carvings depicting individuals wearing Egyptian pharaoh headdresses, Roman soldiers' figures in Greek-inspired attire, and even Native American warriors. If these artifacts were genuine, it would imply that numerous ancient civilizations had contact with the Americas thousands of years before Columbus, a conclusion that would overturn the established foundations of global history. But because this notion is so fantastical, traditional archaeologists immediately dismiss the authenticity of Burroughs Cave, viewing it as a set of artifacts with obvious signs of forgery, modern engraving styles, tool marks, consistent with metal equipment, and symbolic inconsistencies. Alongside the carved stones, Burroughs also claimed to have found gold items, masks, coins, and symbolic plaques. Many of these gold coins portray human figures rendered in a stylistic mixture of classical and indigenous elements, making them incompatible with any historical chronology or cultural lineage. Metallurgists have pointed out that the surface texture and fabrication methods appear modern rather than ancient. Yet what remains baffling is the sheer quantity of these gold pieces far too many for an untrained individual to manufacture without leaving evidence of the process. However, the most controversial aspect lies not in the artifacts themselves, but in the story of their discovery. Russell Burroughs never revealed the cave's exact location. He also refused independent scientific surveys, provided no excavation maps, and repeatedly altered details in his accounts. This placed Burroughs' cave under a heavy veil of skepticism from the very beginning. Some believe he feared looting. Others suspect he concealed the location because the entire story was fabricated. The truth is, no one has ever actually entered the cave said to hold this treasure except Burroughs himself. Yet for decades, thousands of artifacts have continued to appear on the private collector market or in the possession of people who believe in Burroughs' cave's authenticity. This creates one of the greatest paradoxes. If the artifacts are fake, their production must have been organized on an industrial scale. But if they are real, then we are faced with an undocumented civilization capable of transcontinental contact in prehistoric times. And then comes the core of the entire mystery, the deep polarization within the research community, which has made Burroughs' cave one of the most hotly debated archaeological subjects of the past 40 years. This is no longer merely a story about strange artifacts. It has become a clash of worldviews between two opposing intellectual camps. One side, consisting of traditional archaeologists, insists that Burroughs' cave is a modern hoax. They highlight machine abrasion marks on the stones, the illogical blend of symbols, and the complete lack of legitimate excavation work. To them, Burroughs' cave exemplifies pseudo-archaeology, fabricated narratives built on misunderstanding, exaggeration, or deliberate forgery. The other side, comprising independent researchers, proponents of ancient contact theories, OOP arts, and those who believe that human history contains massive unfilled gaps, views Burroughs' cave differently. They argue that the discovery was dismissed too quickly, simply because it challenges academic orthodoxy. They ask, why not test all the artifacts independently? Why not allow a survey of the cave site? Why does academia refuse open discussion? For this group, the aggressive rejection of Burroughs' cave is itself evidence that something deeper is being overlooked, something mainstream history is unwilling to recognize. This divide has transformed Burroughs' cave from an archaeological curiosity into an intellectual battleground where each side argues not just about artifacts, but about the very definition of truth in archaeology. Supporters view Burroughs' cave as evidence that human history remains incomplete, while detractors consider it a prime example of myth-making used for profit or notoriety. Neither side shows any sign of backing down. And as time passes, more artifacts emerge, the story grows more convoluted, and the truth remains buried, much like the cave itself. Ironically, to this day, not a single artifact attributed to Burroughs' cave has passed independent laboratory testing in a way that confirms ancient origins. Yet no one can satisfactorily explain the origin of the thousands of items differing drastically in style, material, and technique. Thus, the debate continues, caught between an elaborate modern forgery and the legacy of a lost civilization. And this unresolved state has made Burroughs' cave one of the most polarizing archaeological mysteries in the United States, reflecting the broader tension between skepticism and belief, between scientific evidence and the gaps that science has yet to fill. Perhaps Burroughs' cave never existed, or perhaps it is a discovery capable of rewriting humanity's understanding of its past. But until the cave is truly opened, if it exists at all, everything remains an unanswered question. And it is precisely this suspended state between truth and fabrication between science and myth that keeps the Burrows Cave artifacts from ever fading away. Amid the barren, rocky mountains, harsh winds, swirling sands, and a landscape almost untouched by a human presence, in Baluchistan, Pakistan, stands a colossal stone formation that has puzzled archaeologists, geologists, and ancient mystery researchers for decades: the Sphinx of Baluchistan. From a certain angle, this rock structure resembles a majestic seated sphinx, so strikingly, its head, shoulders, chest, and body clearly distinguished, as if someone thousands of years ago had intentionally sculpted it. But this is only the beginning of a much deeper enigma. What makes the Sphinx of Baluchistan one of the most fiercely debated subjects is not merely its resemblance to the Egyptian Sphinx, but the layers of rock formations surrounding, behind, and beneath it, collectively forming what appears to be a massive stepped temple architecture with cuts, planes, terraces, and walls so straight that few can ignore them. And thus the question echoes endlessly: is this a masterpiece of nature, or a long-buried remnant of an unrecorded civilization? What do you think lies behind the true origin of the Baluchistan Sphinx, natural formation, or remnants of an ancient civilization? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first thing that shocks observers is the resemblance of the face and headdress to the famous Giza Sphinx. From afar, the top of the rock takes the shape of a human or mythical creature's head, with large masses of stone forming the shoulders and chest. The elongated body stretches backward like a monolithic statue lying on the ground, making the whole formation appear like a colossal sculpture of the ancient world. Remarkably, even though erosion has heavily worn the structure, the balance between its parts seems undeniable. The way the forms curve, sink, and break with an almost deliberate order leads many to believe that if nature made this, it must be one of the most improbable coincidences it has ever produced. But as one approaches, the mystery grows even more difficult to explain. Behind the Sphinx, another massive formation rises, resembling a stepped temple or pyramid. The rocky tiers appear arranged in orderly layers, with broad, flat surfaces, overhangs, and even features resembling doorways or facades of an ancient religious structure. Many who have studied satellite images believe the entire formation may be more than a single statue. It may represent a vast architectural complex, including temples, corridors, and terraces. And here the debate intensifies: how much of this entire formation is natural, how many features might show signs of deliberate carving, and could any known or unknown civilization have existed in such a harsh region and possessed the capability to construct something of this scale? From the perspective of mainstream science, the simplest explanation is that this is sandstone shaped by natural erosion. Powerful winds, seasonal rains, sandstorms, and millions of years of geological processes can produce strange and even anthropomorphic shapes. Indeed, geology offers many examples of rocks shaped like animals or human faces. But the problem is this: no known natural structure has ever exhibited so many artificial-looking features at once. Natural erosion typically creates randomness, irregular curves, unpredictable fractures, rough surfaces, and a lack of symmetry. Yet here, not only the head, but also the steps, the temple roof, the arched doorway, and the vertical walls all display parallel lines, relatively even heights, and almost right angles, forms extremely difficult to generate by random erosion alone. Supporters of the artificial construction theory argue that if only one part looked sculpted, it could be coincidence. If only a set of steps appeared, it could also be coincidence. But when a single rock mass contains a sequence of architectural-like details, steps, columns, walls, roofs, facades, the probability of pure natural formation drops to nearly zero. What intensifies the debate further is the way straight cuts appear exactly where they would in real architecture, aligned to axes and angles, as though telling a forgotten story. There are razor-straight grooves running horizontally across the formation, unusually flat surfaces, in a landscape that should be rugged and evenly recessed tiers, features strongly reminiscent of ancient stoneworking techniques used by civilizations that specialized in monolithic construction. One of the most astonishing features pointed out by independent researchers is the existence of nearly perfect horizontal and vertical planes. These surfaces are not randomly sculpted by wind, they appear oriented. This raises the question, if nature can create such precise coincidences, why do other natural formations around the world rarely achieve such a clearly architectural look? And if this is indeed the remnant of an ancient structure, an even more difficult question follows: what civilization could have existed in a region where mainstream history records almost no permanent settlement? When comparing the formation to ancient South Asian monuments, such as Hindu rock-cut temples or colossal statues in India, several details of the Baluchistan Sphinx appear strikingly similar: stepped levels, separated planes, and guardian figure-like forms at the front. This leads some to believe the entire area may once have belonged to a forgotten religious architectural tradition. Nearby stands the Hinglaj Mata Temple, one of the oldest and most sacred Hindu sites, strengthening speculation that the Sphinx may not be a natural curiosity, but the eroded remains of a larger sacred complex. Yet mainstream archaeologists remain cautious. Without excavation, without stratigraphic study, without dating techniques applied to the rock layers, all hypotheses remain unverified. And this lack of investigation is itself part of the mystery. To this day, no major scientific survey has ever been conducted. No international research team has been granted permission for deep excavation. No widely published rock sample analysis exists. Everything remains at the level of surface observation. This absence of data has pushed the Sphinx of Baluchistan into a black hole of information, where every theory, no matter how contradictory, finds room to survive, and debate intensifies even further. This ambiguity sharpens the central question: can nature produce such a coherent set of architectural-like forms? Or is this truly the eroded shell of an ancient structure buried for millennia, and now partially exposed by the winds? If natural erosion mechanism can simultaneously produce straight edges, flat planes, right angles, and evenly spaced tiers, if artificial, which civilization built it, with what techniques, at what time, and for what purpose? Why are there no historical records, and why would it stand in such a remote place, a region that remains difficult to access even today? Until an official excavation takes place, the mystery stands suspended between two extremes: a unique geological wonder or the lost remains of an unnamed ancient monument hidden by time. But regardless of the answer, the Sphinx of Baluchistan continues to captivate millions, for it evokes a feeling all lovers of archaeology understand: the sense that something from the deep past is trying to tell its story, but we do not yet have the information to hear it clearly. In a world where most great mysteries have already been solved, standing before a structure no one can confidently label natural or artificial awakens the imagination more powerfully than ever. And perhaps that is the most haunting and enchanting quality of the Sphinx of Baluchistan. It places us in the role of seekers, standing at the edge of darkness, at the boundary between science and myth. between what is known and what remains unknowable. A mystery not only carved into stone, but carved into the very limits of human understanding. Amid the sacred grounds of the ancient capital, Anuradhapura, once the religious and political heart of Sri Lanka for over a millennium, lies a circular stone carved with enigmatic symbols known today by the captivating name, the Anuradhapura Stargate Stone. Situated within the ancient royal garden of Ranmasu Uyana, surrounded by holy reservoirs and venerable stone structures, this slab appears entirely detached from the artistic, religious, and cultural conventions of its era. No ancient texts explain its meaning, no local legends mention its purpose, and no scholar has reached a definitive conclusion regarding its true function. Yet this very silence has made it one of the most intriguing archaeological mysteries in South Asia. What do you think lies behind the origin of this mysterious stone in the ancient capital of Anuradhapura? Was it a symbolic artwork, a forgotten scientific instrument, or something far more extraordinary? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. The stone is almost circular in shape, divided into multiple concentric geometric layers filled with abstract symbols, straight lines, curves, divided square segments, and interlocking circles. Many refer to it as a star map. Others view it as a schematic for a cosmic gateway, while some believe it marks a point of contact between humans and an extraterrestrial civilization. These theories, though controversial, gained traction because the stone's design is unique. Nowhere else in Sri Lankan artistic history exists anything remotely similar. Ancient artisans typically carved floral motifs, Buddhist figures, or religious emblems, yet this slab avoids all those traditions instead, embracing a wholly unfamiliar visual language based on linear geometry and layered structural divisions. This deviation makes it exceedingly difficult to attribute the stone to any known artistic school or historical lineage. One key reason the stone is so mysterious lies in its precise positioning. It is not placed randomly within the garden. Rather, it appears deliberately aligned between Tisawiwa, a man-made reservoir dating back to the 3rd century BCE, Isurumunia, an ancient Buddhist temple, and the entirety of Ranmasu Uyana's royal garden complex. These 3 points form a geometrically harmonious triangle, leading many archaeologists to suspect the stone might have served astronomical or ritual measurement purposes. Some theorize it may have been used to observe star reflections on the water during significant nights. Yet this idea remains unproven, partly because the symbols do not correspond to any known astronomical system preserved in Buddhist texts or Sri Lankan traditions. Beyond its unclear function, the stone also confounds scholars due to its total lack of written characters. During the Anuradhapura period, Brahmi and later early Sinhala inscriptions were widely carved on stone pillars, temple walls, and tomb markers. However, not a single written symbol appears on this slab. This raises an important set of questions. If the stone served a ritual or astronomical purpose, why is there no annotation? If it was religious, why does it not align with established doctrinal iconography? And if it was merely artistic, why does it diverge so drastically from the artistic styles that defined its era? What elevates the Anuradhapura Stargate stone from unusual to truly extraordinary is the nearly perfect precision of its geometric carvings. This fifth element is widely considered the most baffling aspect of the stone. Its concentric circles are so symmetrical that even modern measuring tools detect barely a millimeter of deviation. The straight lines dividing these circles into equal segments along with the evenly spaced square-like units, leave experts wondering what tools did ancient artisans possess to achieve this level of accuracy. Some researchers propose the use of taut cords, simple compasses, or axis rotation methods, yet these do not fully explain how the circles maintain flawless radii with no wobble across such a broad surface. Some curves stretch almost the entire diameter of the stone, but remain sharp-thin and perfectly smooth, an outcome nearly impossible on hard stone without highly refined metal tools or advanced surveying techniques. Measurements taken by archaeologists show repeating numerical ratios, including fractal-like divisions and proportions close to the golden ratio, which is virtually absent in ancient Sri Lankan architecture. This precision has fueled countless theories, ranging from rigorously scientific to deeply speculative. Supporters of the Stargate theory argue that the carvings function as an operational diagram, a guide for activating an interdimensional gateway or communication device. They suggest the layered geometry, concentric circles, and intersecting divisions may symbolize energy fields or cosmic coordinates. Some even compare the motifs to those found in Mesopotamian artifacts or pre-Columbian carvings in the Americas, claiming a shared abstract geometric vocabulary. Although no scientific evidence supports such claims, the superficial resemblance has contributed to the stone's modern mystique. More conservative scholars attempt practical explanations. Perhaps the stone relates to agricultural timing, hydrological cycles, or ritual practices involving water, since Ranmasu Uyana is adjacent to an important reservoir system. Yet the central problem persists. None of these explanations fully align with the geometric design. Why would ritual art require such extreme precision? Why divide circles into mathematically equal segments? Why embed repeating ratios? None of the traditional models resolve these contradictions. The precision has even prompted modern engineers to digitally recreate the carvings. Their simulations reveal that while some elements could be produced with simple tools, maintaining perfect consistency across the entire stone appears extremely difficult without sophisticated measurement systems. This raises the possibility that ancient Sri Lankan artisans possessed mathematical or engineering knowledge that has not survived in written form. Much cultural knowledge was indeed lost due to wars, shifting religious eras, and natural decay, making this hypothesis plausible. The stone's unusually smooth surface adds another layer of mystery. Although the carvings are shallow, they remain remarkably crisp, suggesting a deliberate effort to produce a flawless base so that the geometry would remain undistorted. This invites further questions. Why was such precision necessary? If decorative, why such labor? If religious, why break tradition? If astronomical, why no guiding inscriptions? Another puzzling detail is that the stone shows no signs of modification across time. This leads some scholars to believe its purpose was forgotten early or that it originated from a specialized group whose knowledge was not widely transmitted. Meanwhile, supporters of more esoteric theories argue that the stone may predate the Anuradhapura period entirely and was simply rediscovered and incorporated into the later royal garden without understanding its original function. All these factors, the extraordinary geometric precision, the unfamiliar symbolic system, the meticulous placement, the absence of text, and the unanswered questions surrounding its construction combine to form a story with no clear resolution. This ambiguity is precisely what keeps the Anuradhapura Stargate stone at the center of fascination for archaeologists, independent researchers, and enthusiasts of ancient mysteries. A small stone in an ancient garden, yet it holds questions capable of challenging our assumptions about the technical capabilities, symbolic systems, and geometric reasoning of early human civilizations. Was it merely an obscure artistic creation, a remnant of forgotten knowledge, or, as some boldly suggest, a trace of contact with an otherworldly civilization? Whatever the truth may be, its mystery remains very much alive. Hidden beneath thick layers of cold earth in West Dunbartonshire, where the winds of Scotland sweep across grass-covered hills as if whispering stories devoured by time, the Cocknow Stone lies like a doorway into the prehistoric mind. Measuring nearly 13 meters long and 8 meters wide, the stone resembles a celestial map carved into the ground more than a conventional archaeological artifact. Its entire surface is covered with concentric circles, dense cup and ring marks, and winding grooves that evoke the flow of ancient energies or the orbits of distant celestial bodies. Each symbol is more than a carved mark. They appear like encoded messages left behind by a vanished community possessing a remarkably sophisticated mindset and purpose. No documents, legends, or written records explain why this site is saturated with such geometrically precise motifs. That silence alone has made the Cocknow Stone one of Europe's most intriguing archaeological mysteries. What do you think the Cocknow Stone truly represents? Is it a ritual map, an ancient sky chart, a forgotten knowledge system, or something far beyond our modern understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. Since its discovery in the late 19th century, the stone has baffled archaeologists because its age may extend back 5,000 years, belonging to the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age. The mystery lies not only in its antiquity, but also in its extraordinary complexity. Prehistoric people of that era left behind no monumental architecture and no advanced writing system, yet somehow created a vast map engraved purposefully across an entire stone surface. This makes it impossible for experts to regard the Cocknow Stone as a random or decorative carving. Clearly, it is the result of systematic thought and a clearly defined intention, an intention we still cannot decipher today. And this is where the greatest mystery arises. What was the true purpose of the Cocknow Stone? Was it a sacred, ceremonial space where ancient people performed rituals related to life, death, and rebirth? Or was it a primordial sky map, recreating the stars and their movements as observed over generations? Or perhaps it was both an intersection of spiritual belief and astronomical knowledge belonging to the communities who once lived here. At first glance, the concentric circles on the Cocknow Stone may appear simple, but detailed study reveals that their arrangement is far from random. Some clusters of circles are interconnected by grooves, as if channeling energy or pointing toward a distant location. Some grooves extend toward the horizon, where the sun rises or sets during key times of the year. Though lacking absolute proof, computer modeling suggests that several motifs may correspond to the positions of ancient constellations. This makes the sky map hypothesis one of the most compelling lines of research. For ancient people, the sky was not merely astronomical, it was the dwelling place of God's ancestors and destiny. Recreating the heavens upon the earth could reflect a deep desire to connect humanity with the cosmos, effectively turning the Cocknow Stone into a stone-carved, celestial manuscript. Yet another explanation, stranger but equally plausible, suggests that the Cocknow Stone may be a ritual map, not a geographical or astronomical chart in the scientific sense, but a map of the spiritual world. In many ancient cultures, concentric circles symbolize the journey of the soul, gateways to metaphysical realms or cycles of rebirth. The grooves extending from the centers might represent the flow of life or pathways guiding souls from one world to another. Sunlight passing across these motifs at significant times of the year may have activated ceremonies or marked sacred moments. This would mean the Kokono stone functioned as a colossal ritual space used for ceremonies now entirely forgotten. The puzzle deepens because many motifs on the stone appear nowhere else in the region. Scotland and England have thousands of cup and ring carvings, but the Kokono stone features unique geometries, large spirals, extended concentric patterns resembling technical schematics and grooves following mysterious rules. Some scholars call this proto-cosmology, a primitive yet structured worldview engraved into stone, much like modern humans use diagrams or scientific symbols. This leads to the bold theory that the creators were not merely recording observations, but attempting to explain the universe through a symbolic system whose key has been lost. Some modern researchers propose that the Kokono stone may represent part of a prehistoric astronomical dataset. By tracking the positions of the sun, moon, and stars across generations, ancient people may have produced a long-term cosmic record for agriculture rituals or predicting natural cycles. The concentric rings could depict recurring celestial motions, while the grooves might show orbits or relationships between heavenly bodies. Yet the biggest issue remains: there are no comparable artifacts to confirm such an interpretation. The Kokono stone stands alone, as if it were the final surviving fragment of a far larger knowledge system whose other pieces have vanished. Another strange aspect is that the stone once had to be buried from humanity. In 1965, after repeated vandalism and graffiti, archaeologists were forced to cover the entire surface with soil to protect it. Such an action is rare, a significant heritage site hidden away instead of showcased. In 2015 and 2016, it was temporarily excavated and scanned in 3D, then reburied. The fact that such an important ancient mystery must be repeatedly concealed has led many to believe its significance may be far deeper than conventional archaeology acknowledges. Despite high-resolution 3D imagery, laser scans, and scientific studies, the Kokono stone still refuses to reveal its meaning. It is like a torn chapter from humanity's great epic. We can see the images, measure the depths, and map the positions, but we cannot understand the language of its creators. The concentric circles and grooves are not merely art. They are memories of a lost world, a world whose worldview, beliefs, and cosmic understanding no longer align with our modern interpretations. And perhaps that is what gives the Kokono stone its irresistible allure. It is not just a carved surface. It is not just an archaeological relic. It is a challenge left to us. Understand me if you can. And the more we try to decode it, the more we realize that between modern knowledge and ancient thought lies a vast chasm, a chasm across which the Kokono stone stands silently, continuing to question our assumptions about its purpose, the knowledge it holds, and the civilization that created it. Amid the winds and waves of the Aegean Sea, the small island of Keros appears unremarkable from afar. There are no grand architectural complexes, no enduring monuments, no urban systems like those left behind by other ancient civilizations. Yet when excavations began, archaeologists discovered that this island had once been the center of a religious ritual so unusual that it has no precedent in history: the intentional fragmentation of Cycladic figurines. Despite millennia passing, the fragments remain silent, yet containing a story far larger than their size. None of the figurines were ever found intact, never able to be reassembled, never capable of returning to their original form, as though ancient hands deliberately destroyed the perfection they had painstakingly created. Why do you think the Cycladic people intentionally shattered the figurines they worked so hard to create? Was it a spiritual ritual, an act of releasing sacred energy, or something far deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. What makes this ritual a profound mystery is not merely the act of breaking figurines, but the fact that the entire process was organized, deliberate, repeated over many generations, and too large in scale to be accidental. Keros was not a settlement. There is no evidence of permanent habitation, agriculture, or long-term living. Yet a massive quantity of artifacts was brought here from across the Cyclades, then destroyed in a systematic manner. This transformed Keros into a kind of ancient pilgrimage island, a place where people from different islands gathered, performed a shared ritual, then departed, leaving behind marble shards like the ashes of a sacred ceremony. Digging deeper into the strata reveals an even more astonishing fact. No fragment matches another within the same deposit, and it is extremely rare for pieces of the same figurine to be found together. This shows that the fragmentation was not simply destruction, but intentional separation and dispersal, as though the Cycladic people wanted to ensure that no figurine could ever be revived or reassembled. In their worldview, perhaps the figurines were not mere objects, but living vessels of spiritual force, and breaking them was a way to release, conclude, or transform that energy. Yet the most haunting and inexplicable part of the story lies in the figurines themselves, the objects that Cycladic artisans devoted immense skill and effort to create, only to destroy them afterward. Cycladic figurines are renowned for their minimalist, almost modern appearance, their geometric precision and proportions that astonish contemporary sculptors. But this sophistication cannot be understood without examining the materials and techniques behind their creation, a topic that remains one of archaeology's most puzzling questions. The most common material used was Naxian marble, an extremely hard, fine-grained stone with a luminous surface, typically reserved for the highest levels of craftsmanship. Transporting large quantities of this marble across islands during the Bronze Age, when technological capabilities were limited, was already a remarkable feat. But carving it with primitive tools is even harder to believe. Their tools were little more than abrasive stone's bones, and occasionally soft copper materials, utterly inadequate for producing sharp cuts, wax-smooth surfaces, or seamless transitions between planes. And yet, they succeeded. Not only succeeded, but achieved such precision that many figurines still retain their original polish after more than 4,000 years. For larger figurines, maintaining proportional balance, creating even surfaces, aligning body curves with subtle facial features, all with minimalistic style, required a mastery of geometry and technique far beyond what we typically associate with this period. Their methods of shaping, smoothing, and finishing the marble demanded extreme patience, appropriate tools, and deep understanding of the stone's structure. The paradox is profound. To create such flawless works required immense time and labor, only for the figurines to be carried to Keros and shattered. This contradiction lies at the very heart of the mystery. Why would a civilization create marble masterpieces of astonishing refinement only to destroy them? If the figurines held religious value, why not preserve them? If they symbolized power, why crush them? If they marked stages of a ritual cycle, why transport them all the way to Keros? And if destruction itself was sacred, why make the artifacts so exquisitely beautiful only to reduce them to fragments in a single moment? Analyses of fracture patterns reveal that the figurines were not broken randomly. They were struck at specific weak points, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of marble's behavior. The Cycladic people selected breakpoints, measured force, and engineered the shattering so that the figurines would produce fragments of desired size and shape. This supports the idea that the exquisite craftsmanship and the deliberate destruction were not separate acts, but two stages of one unified ritual creation: completion, destruction, burial. The figurines were never meant to endure. They were designed for a ceremonial life cycle. But the organization behind the ritual grows even more intricate. Just a short distance from Keros lies Daskalio, a promontory shaped into a stepped, pyramid-like structure. Its construction required massive amounts of imported stone, and excavations reveal metalworking installations, water management systems, and complex architectural planning. This could not have been a simple settlement. Its sophistication forces us to ask, were Keros and Daskalio part of a single ritual, technological, spiritual complex? If Daskalio was a center of preparation or worship, then Keros may have been the final stage, the place where figurines completed their sacred life cycle. The finer the craftsmanship, the more significant the ritual destruction. Many ancient cultures valued elaborately made offerings, but among the Cycladic people, this principle reached an extreme. Masterpieces of timeless beauty were annihilated within seconds. Such aesthetic sacrifice indicates a ritual of profound meaning, one that cannot be reduced to simple symbolism. Because there is no written record, no preserved mythology, and no decipherable symbolic system, all that remains are thousands of marble fragments. Their silence deepens the mystery. We know that the figurines were broken, that their craftsmanship was advanced, that people traveled to Keros to perform these rites, and that the rituals continued for generations. But we still do not know why. Thus, the Keros figurine fragmentation rituals is not merely an act of destruction. It is a profound, unresolved question about how ancient people perceived creation, divinity, art, spirit, and the life cycle of sacred objects. This is why Keros remains one of the most iconic mysteries of Aegean archaeology. It challenges modern assumptions, breaks conventional frameworks, and forces us to reconsider how ancient civilizations defined art, ritual, and beauty. Each fragment is not simply the remnant of a lost object, but an echo of a worldview, a ritual system, and a spiritual philosophy we have not yet been able to fully grasp. The Al-Ula Dadanite lion tombs rise within the Al-Ula Valley as silent witnesses of an ancient civilization that once flourished magnificently in the Arabian desert, yet today survive only through strangely carved stone formations, so refined that they far surpass what people typically attribute to the craftsmanship of more than 24 centuries ago. At first glance, the tombs do not impress through sheer size or grandeur, but through the lion reliefs, symbols of power belonging to the kingdom of Dadan, quietly positioned on the facades of each burial chamber. Yet upon closer examination, one sees not only ritual or religious symbolism, but also an astonishing level of precision in stone carving, smooth bevels, perfectly straight surfaces as if aligned with metal rulers, and near-perfect symmetry on soft sandstone, a material prone to cracking and notoriously difficult to carve in detail. This extraordinary technique has made the Al-Ula Dadanite lion tombs one of the most enduring archaeological mysteries of the Middle East. These tombs date to roughly the 6th to 4th centuries BCE, meaning they appeared extremely early, even earlier than Petra and Hegra, the most famous rock-cut monuments of the Nabateans. This implies that Al-Ula was once a center of artistic development, and advanced stonemasonry long before neighboring civilizations reached their own architectural peaks. Such early emergence raises a profound question: were the Dadanites pioneers of rock-cut traditions in the Arabian Peninsula, or were they inheritors of a much older technique, one possibly passed down from prehistoric communities that moved through this region? What do you think is the most reasonable explanation for the Dadanites' ultra-precise sandstone carving technique, advanced craftsmanship, a lost ancient method, or something even more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The lion figures, sometimes symmetrically placed on both sides of a tomb entrance, sometimes appearing as a single guardian, possess distinctive artistic traits that resemble neither the Levantine tradition nor Egyptian motifs, and differ significantly from later Nabatean designs. Their style is intriguingly hybrid, combining the powerful proportions of northern protective deities with unusual softness and emotional expression, as if the artisans aimed to convey something deeper than mere protection of the deceased. This artistic fusion has led many scholars to believe that ancient Al-Ula was not merely a commercial oasis, but a cultural crossroads where artisans from various regions exchanged techniques and religious symbolism. Yet the question persists: how did Dadanite craftsmen reach such advanced levels of skill, so early surpassing even the most celebrated stone traditions of the region? The greatest mystery, and the one archaeologists openly admit, remains unsolved, lies in the astonishing precision of the sandstone carving. Sandstone is fragile. Exposure to wind, water, or strong force often causes it to fracture. Yet the facades of the lion tombs are flawlessly smooth, with straight cuts as sharp as laser lines and rounded edges of almost perfect uniformity. A slight miscalculation or a single misplaced strike would shatter the entire surface, yet this seemingly never occurred in the Dadanite monuments. The ability to control primitive iron tools so perfectly more than 2,000 years ago cannot fully explain such precision. This has led to numerous theories. Perhaps they used a special grinding and polishing technique combined with carefully selected, highly cohesive sandstone. Or perhaps they belonged to an inherited lineage of master artisans whose skills had undergone centuries of refinement. Some researchers go even further, suggesting that the Dadanites may have known how to soak, hydrate, or heat-soften sandstone layers before carving them, making the rock easier to shape, then allowing it to dry back into its hardened state. Yet to this day, no direct evidence confirms any of these hypotheses, leaving their carving technique one of the most captivating enigmas in ancient craftsmanship. Not only the facades, but also the finer details of the lion sculptures reveal extraordinary craftsmanship: layered, flowing manes, eyes, noses, and mouths placed along precise axes of symmetry, and chests and limbs shaped with natural convexity and concavity, as though carved from much harder stone rather than sandstone. Modern stone carving experts attempting to replicate the process note that such detail would require extremely sharp and durable tools that have not been documented in the Dadanite period. This has strengthened the belief that their precision was more than mere skill. It may have been part of a lost artisanal technology once widespread, but erased by the passage of time and historical upheavals. Strangely, many of the lion tombs contain no human remains or clear evidence of burial practices. Some chambers are empty, others hold peculiar niches that do not correspond to known Arabian funerary customs. This raises the question: were these actual tombs or symbolic monuments serving primarily ritual functions rather than funerary ones? If symbolic, what purpose did they fulfill? Did the Dadanites venerate ancestors by constructing hollow stone chambers, or did they believe the soul required a stone house to continue existing after the physical body had vanished? None of the proposed explanations has gained universal acceptance. Another significant mystery lies in their placement. Instead of forming a unified necropolis, the lion tombs appear scattered in clusters, sometimes perched on steep cliffs, other times hidden within narrow rock formations. This layout does not match the burial patterns known from other cultures of the time. Some scholars suggest that the locations may relate to astronomical alignments such as the sun or stars on significant dates. Others propose family or clan territorial divisions. Still others consider the possibility of spiritual traditions associated with points where mountain meets sky places believed to facilitate the soul's departure from the physical world. But these ideas remain speculative. Despite all the mysteries surrounding them, the most controversial and widely discussed feature of the lion tombs remains the extraordinary accuracy of their carved lines, surpassing anything expected from iron tools available during the Dadanite era. Some cuts are so straight they seem produced by rotating mechanical instruments technology that would not appear in the Middle East until millennia later. Furthermore, Dadanite artisans somehow managed to prevent deep sandstone cuts from cracking a challenge even modern craftsmen must approach with care. Their mastery inspires an audacious possibility. Could the Dadanites have possessed a technical secret unknown to us today? A method of stone fabrication that left no clear marks, a set of tools or a material processing technique now entirely lost. Today, as the sunset casts a golden glow over the Al-Ula Valley and illuminates the warm rose-colored sandstone, the lion carvings appear like ancient eyes gazing upon the modern world. They are more than artistic remnants. They are reminders that some civilizations once achieved levels of craftsmanship and thought far beyond what we assume. The Al-Ula Dadanite lion tombs are not merely an ancient cemetery, they are the silent record of hands capable of turning soft stone into perfect planes, of creating symbols that endure across the ages, and of preserving a secret that continues to challenge archaeologists, material scientists, and the history of humanity itself. In the ancient valley of Dodona, where the Greeks believed that Zeus whispered prophecies through the wind, passing across sacred oak leaves, thousands of small but historically weighty lead fragments were discovered, forming the largest surviving collection of ancient texts ever found in this sanctuary. These tablets, now known as the Dodona lead curse tablets, serve as a rare window into the mind's anxieties, hopes, and even the darker impulses of people who lived more than 2 millennia ago. They do not merely reflect the spiritual life of the time, but also reveal deeply personal stories, moments in which people both pleaded with the gods and attempted to manipulate fate through secret curses. Each lead tablet, though just a few centimeters in size, carries within it the inner world of individuals who lived in an era when divine presence influenced every decision, love, marriage, business, illness, and even the smallest suspicions of daily life. Strangely, most of these lead tablets do not contain eloquent passages like those found in Greek philosophy or mythology. Instead, they feature extremely ordinary language, sometimes clumsy, filled with spelling errors, proving that they were written by commoners, people of modest education but deep emotion. They inscribed direct questions such as, "Is someone plotting to harm me? Should I trust this woman? Should I sell this piece of land? Or who stole my belongings?" This reveals that Dodona was not only a center of prophecy, but also a place people turned to when grappling with private fears they could not share with neighbors or family. This raw sincerity, sometimes desperate, turns the tablets into vivid evidence of spiritual life and social psychology in the ancient world. Even more astonishing is their dual function. Alongside the questions addressed to Zeus, many tablets contain intentional curses directed at specific individuals. These curses were often folded multiple times, twisted or pierced with sharp objects, as if the writer were performing a ritual of binding, attempting to fix the victim's fate. They named the target, pleading with the gods to cause them to fail in lawsuits, fall ill, or lose the ability to harm the petitioner. The presence of this dark magic inside a major sanctuary raises profound questions about the boundary between official religion and folk belief. Did the ancient Greeks truly separate the two, or did they view every form of divine petition, whether for salvation or punishment, as part of the same sacred exchange with supernatural forces? Yet the most enigmatic aspect of the entire collection of more than 4,000 tablets does not lie in their everyday worries or malicious curses, but in a peculiar group of inscriptions that have baffled archaeologists and linguists alike, tablets containing characters that defy interpretation. These markings do not match classical Greek writing or any known regional dialect. Some consist of short strokes, unusual shapes, sequences of symbols, lacking grammatical structure, or letters arranged in ways that cannot form meaningful words. They appear deliberately encoded, not meant for public comprehension, but intended to conceal meaning from all eyes except the priest or the god himself. Some scholars argue that these inscriptions represent a primitive form of cryptography created to protect sensitive questions from being read by temple staff. Others believe they are ritual writing not meant to communicate literal meaning, but to create magical effect, like incantations formed from symbols rather than words. Another theory proposes that the writing belongs to an undocumented and long-extinct local dialect, making these fragments the sole surviving remnants of a forgotten linguistic system. Whatever the truth, we confront a chilling reality. Even with today's advanced deciphering technologies, some tablets remain completely unreadable. We cannot know what the writers sought, whom they cursed, or what fears they carried into the sanctuary. The characters stand as barriers of time, seals over the secrets of people long gone, preventing us from reaching their deepest anxieties. This silence amplifies the mystery, demonstrating that at least one layer of ancient Greek spirituality lies beyond the explanatory reach of the modern world. The Dodona lead tablets also bear witness to a unique prophetic practice. Unlike the Oracle of Delphi, where priestesses recited divine messages, the Greeks of Dodona believed Zeus answered through natural sounds, the rustling of sacred oak leaves, the clanging of metal objects, or other environmental signs. Priests interpreted these sounds, yet remarkably, none of the tablets record the divine response, only the questions survive. This has led to the theory that the answers were spoken aloud and never written down, disappearing instantly after being delivered. Thus, the tablets become one-sided archives, preserving only human voices, not divine ones. This absence introduces yet another mystery. Were the prophecies truly given, or did some questions never receive an answer? Moreover, the anonymity of most writers adds an eerie atmosphere. People rarely included their names, especially in curses or sensitive questions. This anonymity prevents researchers from reconstructing personal stories or social contexts. We know only that these individuals lived, feared, hoped, and sought Zeus's guidance, yet their identities remain unknown. This transforms the tablets into faceless voices, silent yet haunting. From a linguistic perspective, the Dodona tablets are priceless. They preserve the authentic speech of everyday Greeks, a form of language rarely recorded in formal texts. Through them, scholars gain insight into ancient thought patterns, disputes, relationships, and spiritual practices. Yet the undecipherable symbols described in Section 4 shake the entire foundation. If secret codes existed, then other forms of communication may have once circulated in ancient society without leaving clear evidence. Perhaps there was a hidden ritual language taught only to select individuals. Perhaps there existed a mystical writing system that outsiders were never meant to understand. If so, the tablets stand not only as archaeological artifacts, but as the last echoes of a lost esoteric tradition. Looking at the collection as a whole, Dodona's mystery lies not only in its scale or age, but in the sense that beneath each thin layer of lead is an entire world of human spirituality, woven from faith, fear, and ambition. Honest pleas, vindictive curses, cryptic symbols, resisting interpretation, all combine to form a realm that modern science, despite its progress, cannot fully penetrate. In this way, Dodona becomes more than a place where humans sought answers from the gods. It becomes a sanctuary where the gods preserved the secrets of humanity, locking them forever inside these fragile lead tablets that time itself could not erase. In your opinion, what is the most mysterious aspect hidden within the Dodona, lead tablets, the curses, the unanswered questions, or the undecipherable symbols? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Hatra Great Iwan has long been regarded as one of the most magnificent and enigmatic ancient structures of Mesopotamia, a colossal arch rising from the Iraqi desert as if defying both time and nature. From the very first glance, this great Iwan creates an impression of unbelievable solidity, a completely open structure with no central supporting column, yet capable of withstanding thousands of years of sandstorms, warfare, and even earthquakes. However, beneath this imposing exterior lies something that has puzzled archaeologists and modern engineers more than anything else: the material used by the Parthians to build Hatra, a type of light yet durable substance far beyond conventional expectations. This very aspect has become the core mystery of the entire structure, an unresolved enigma that science still has not truly deciphered. What do you think lies behind the Great Iwan's ability to endure for thousands of years? Was it a lost material technology knowledge far ahead of its time, or something else entirely that we haven't imagined yet? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. When examining the remaining bricks and stones of the Great Iwan, the first astonishing detail is that their weight does not correspond to the extraordinary durability of the structure. The stone slabs and bricks forming the Iwan's arch are significantly lighter than typical construction materials of the same era, almost giving the impression that they were created from a specially optimized compound, designed to reduce the load on the overall structure. Yet during the Parthian period, no written records describe such material technology, nor is there any sign that they possessed techniques sophisticated enough to produce ultralight materials with such exceptional strength as seen in Hatra. Even more puzzling surface analyses of the material reveal a type of mortar or binding mixture unlike anything known, not Roman cement, not Assyrian gypsum, and not comparable to the mortars of Greece or Persia. Researchers have attempted to examine its chemical composition, but the differences lie in the extremely precise ratios of minerals, ratios so exact that even slight variations would drastically reduce durability. This has led to the hypothesis that the Parthians may have possessed a unique material secret, passed orally among master builders and now completely lost. The question is, how could they measure, test, and optimize their materials so precisely without leaving behind any technical documents, descriptions, or traces of specialized tools? As archaeological studies progressed, experts discovered that the material was not only lightweight, but seemed to possess a slight degree of elasticity, an extremely rare feature in ancient construction materials. It is this elasticity that allowed the Great Iwan to withstand seismic vibrations for thousands of years without collapsing. Natural expansion joints appear integrated into the brickwork almost as if they were intentionally designed. Yet mastering such properties would require an advanced understanding of structural mechanics, something not clearly documented until much later in Islamic architecture. But in Hatra, it already existed with no earlier precedent. This has sparked bold theories that Hatra's construction techniques did not evolve gradually from surrounding civilizations, but may represent a fully independent engineering tradition, perhaps derived from a source of knowledge unrecorded in current history. Even more perplexing is how the combination of lightweight materials and load-bearing geometry was executed with such precision that many modern engineers admit that even with contemporary equipment, replicating an arch of this size using similar materials would be extremely challenging. They believe the Parthians calculated the compressive force paths within the arch to near perfection. And to achieve that, they must have either possessed advanced measuring tools or employed a construction method that no one today has successfully recreated. The mystery deepens further as there is no clear evidence of the scaffolding that must have been used to build the massive arch. With the Great Iwan's enormous height and span, archaeologists should have found post holes, anchor marks, or traces of support structures. Yet there are none, absolutely none. This has led some researchers to theorize that Hatra's lightweight material may have allowed the builders to use a far simpler scaffolding system, or perhaps none of the traditional type at all. But this hypothesis creates a new dilemma. If the material was light enough to require little scaffolding, how could it also be durable enough to survive thousands of years? Beyond the material mysteries, the Great Iwan's unclear purpose adds to its enigmatic nature. There is no indication that it served as a city gate, as the structure is too grand and ceremonial. It also does not fully resemble a temple, as the completely open design does not align with typical Middle Eastern ritual spaces. Some suggest it may have been the facade of an astronomical ceremonial complex, yet no evidence is strong enough to confirm this. Ultimately, all mysteries return to the foundational material of the structure. It seems the Parthians intentionally created an architecture that was easy to construct due to its lightweight components, yet permanent due to its incredible durability, grand enough to display royal power, yet difficult enough to decipher so that its knowledge remained protected. This raises an unforgettable question. Was the Great Iwan merely a piece of architecture or a declaration of a lost body of knowledge, a testament that a civilization often overlooked in historical accounts may have possessed techniques far ahead of its time? When observing the surviving walls, one can sense a level of refinement. No words can fully capture bricks seemingly lightened on purpose, mortar layers mixed with perfect proportions, arch curves shaped as if governed by some invisible algorithm. And above all, the greatest mystery remains the one no one has found a technical manual construction notes or any sign that this knowledge was meant to be passed on. The Great Iwan stands without explanation, as though it was created to challenge the understanding of future generations. Perhaps its silence, its refusal to reveal the origins of its astonishing light yet durable material, is precisely what makes the Hatra Great Iwan one of the most captivating ancient mysteries of all time. It endures as an unanswered question, a reminder that some secrets of the ancient world still lie buried beneath the golden sands of Mesopotamia, waiting to be uncovered or perhaps destined to remain forever unknown. Hidden among the cracked, rocky ranges of Logar, where the desert winds of Afghanistan blow endlessly and carry with them the scent of time-worn dust, the Mes Aynak Buddhist complex emerges like a silhouette buried beneath the past, a sacred city once radiant before disappearing under the weight of history. Beneath the collapsed layers of earth and stone lies an enormous ancient Buddhist urban center containing monasteries, meditation chambers, commemorative stupas, residential districts, stone pathways, and countless traces of an intellectual hub that once played a crucial role along the Silk Road. Strangely, for centuries, none of this had ever been known until recent excavations unlocked a world sealed in silence. And among all these mysteries, one element makes Mes Aynak one of the most debated archaeological sites on Earth: the colossal clay Buddha statues, towering several meters high, crafted with an almost unbelievable level of refinement, and most importantly, defying every modern understanding of ancient sculptural technology. In your opinion, how could a vast Buddhist city like Mes Aynak remain forgotten for centuries? And why are its colossal clay statues crafted with a level of precision far beyond any known ancient technique? Share your thoughts in the comments below. In a land defined by its punishing climate, with extreme temperature fluctuations, winds strong enough to erode stone and clay that is naturally fragile and prone to cracking, the fact that massive clay statues have survived for thousands of years presents a paradox that cannot be explained through simple logic. Yet there they stand, silent, like guardians of time, watching over the red desert landscape that has transformed completely since the day they were created. The extraordinary nature of these statues lies not only in their size, but also in their material structure. The clay shows no splitting, no erosion, and retains a cohesion far beyond what science would expect. The soft folds of the garments, the gentle curves flowing downward under the pull of gravity, and each strand of hair sculpted with exquisite precision, give the impression that these works were shaped by the hands of a contemporary artist. Yet they have existed here for more than 2 millennia. The greatest question is not merely who created them, but how, for the techniques the ancient craftsmen used appear to surpass all clay working methods known to humanity. Numerous hypotheses have been proposed, but none provide a satisfying explanation. Some scholars suggest that the ancients mixed plant fibers or organic materials into the clay to increase durability, but early analyses show that the material's structure is remarkably uniform, with no signs of reinforcement fibers. Others suspect a special combination of minerals found in the Mes Aynak region, a site built atop the world's second-largest copper deposit, but no explanation clarifies how these compounds could maintain stability for such an extended period. Another theory proposes that the statues were partially fired, using heat from ancient smelting furnaces nearby, but there is no clear evidence that this process actually occurred. All that remains is the final result: colossal clay statues, weighing tons, astonishingly perfect and humbling even to modern sculptural techniques. Another astonishing fact for archaeologists is that the statues' original colors remain preserved. Deep reds, bright yellows, and ancient blues still appear clearly, as though they were applied only decades ago. Under Afghanistan's harsh climate, scorching heat, extreme dryness, and frequent sandstorms, such preservation is virtually impossible. The secret of maintaining these pigments for thousands of years remains entirely unknown. Some researchers believe that the artisans might have used a special organic binder now lost to time, or an ancient coloring technique no longer found in surviving traditions. But once again, these remain only theories. The deeper we explore the history of Mes Aynak, the more we realize it was a crossroads of civilizations, far greater than ancient texts ever recorded. Kushan period ruins, along with influences from Greco-Bactrian, Persian, and Indian art, interweave throughout the artifacts. Ancient manuscripts written in Sanskrit Bactrian and Kharosthi found in brittle wall cavities reveal that Mes Aynak held an essential role in the spread of Buddhism from the Indian subcontinent into Central Asia. The multi-layered murals, repeatedly covered or altered perhaps to align with evolving doctrines or religious aesthetics, demonstrate that this place was once vibrant, shifting, and alive, functioning like a true intellectual center. As more historical puzzles are unearthed, the technical mysteries surrounding the clay Buddha statues only deepen. In smaller niches, life-sized Buddha figures were discovered sculpted with such precision that veins on their hands, wrinkles at the corners of their mouths, and subtle facial expressions remain astonishingly vivid. The local clay contains few binding minerals and should have disintegrated after a few centuries, and yet these statues endure sandstorms, warfare, and the erosion of time. Some extreme theories propose that the ancient artisans understood the unique molecular properties of Mes Aynak clay and discovered a method to transform it, something even modern science has yet to reproduce. But such ideas remain speculative. The location of Mes Aynak itself presents a profound paradox. No other monumental Buddhist center in the world sits directly atop such a massive mineral deposit. It seems the ancients knew something we do not. Perhaps they viewed copper as a sacred metal, or perhaps the site was used for esoteric rituals associated with metallurgical transformation. Yet evidence remains insufficient, and all explanations merely lead to deeper questions. One of the most unsettling aspects of Mes Aynak's history is that such a thriving, wealthy, sacred city vanished abruptly without signs of warfare or natural disaster. No fires, no destruction, no evidence of mass migration. Its inhabitants simply disappeared, leaving behind statues, manuscripts, monasteries, as if they expected to return the next morning, but never did. This disappearance, combined with the mystery of the clay sculpting technology, makes Mes Aynak one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Today, as the modern world returns to this region to mine copper, Mes Aynak faces the real possibility of being erased forever. Should this occur, the secrets of its advanced sculptural techniques will be buried beneath metal and machinery, and we will never learn how ancient artisans conceived and executed their extraordinary work. The clay statues, impossibly beautiful, impossibly durable, and impossibly mysterious, will descend into darkness, along with the story of a brilliant but forgotten civilization. And when that happens, the greatest mystery of Mes Aynak may no longer be how they created these statues, but rather how we allowed ourselves to lose the final chance to understand them. The Arslan Tepe Temple B, emerging from the deep layers of the Anatolian plateau, stands as one of humanity's most confounding remnants, a structure whose every surviving wall corridor, pigment layer, and burn mark seems to whisper of a forgotten architectural intelligence that should not have existed 5,000 years ago. What do you think the unusual emergence of Temple B represents? Is it the remnant of a lost body of knowledge, or simply an unexpected breakthrough in human history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When archaeologists first uncovered the elongated ceremonial corridors the sharply defined thresholds and the interior chambers echoing the remnants of ancient fire rituals. They believed they were examining yet another early administrative religious complex similar to those of Mesopotamia. Yet the deeper they investigated, the more Temple B defied simple categorization, especially in one extraordinary aspect, its construction technology. The mud brick walls, seemingly humble at first glance, revealed an unprecedented sophistication. Every brick was placed in an interlocking system that distributed weight, resisted deformation, and remained astonishingly stable despite the region's temperature fluctuations. These were not casually shaped bricks. They were molded, dried, and refined with a precision that suggests an empirical understanding of structural physics long before such knowledge should have existed. But the true marvel lies not in the bricks themselves, but in the multi-layered protective system enveloping them. Temple B's walls were coated with a sequence of clay-based plasters, each with a specific purpose: moisture resistance, thermal buffering, biological protection, and finally, aesthetic pigmentation. The moisture-resistant layer is the most baffling of all. Even after millennia of burial erosion and exposure, this layer remains intact, clinging to the walls with a tenacity that modern engineers struggle to explain. Geological analysis shows that the mixture contains microscopic mineral inclusions, a refined clay matrix, and a mysterious hydrophobic compound whose exact formula remains unknown. How could a society that predated advanced metallurgy, mathematical theory, and documented architectural science develop a material capable of preventing capillary rise, resisting salt crystallization, and surviving intense fire without crumbling? The existence of this compound alone challenges our assumptions about technological evolution. Temple B was built before the Egyptians raised their first pyramids, before the Indus Valley formulated standardized brick ratios, before Sumerian cities evolved into complex states. Yet here on a hillside in Malatya, someone had mastered the art of controlling moisture in earthen structures with an effectiveness comparable to that of Roman waterproof plasters invented thousands of years later. The protective system was no accident. Microscopic studies show deliberate stratification, with each layer applied after the previous one had partially cured, creating a composite shell that both reinforced the walls and allowed them to breathe, preventing internal condensation. This is a technique so advanced that many modern restorers fail to reproduce it consistently. Even more astonishing is the way the walls reacted to the catastrophic fire that consumed Temple B. Instead of collapsing, the inner layers underwent partial vitrification, hardening like ceramic fired in a kiln. The builders, whether intentionally or intuitively, used materials that would become stronger when exposed to extreme heat. This suggests a knowledge of thermal transformation far beyond what is expected from early Bronze Age communities. And yet, despite its technical brilliance, Temple B was not built for engineering triumph alone. It served as a stage for rituals, administrative control, and displays of centralized authority. The narrow corridors were designed to regulate movement and emotional tension, guiding individuals into a psychological journey toward the innermost sanctuary. The red pigments, still vivid in some areas, hint at ceremonial symbolism tied to blood renewal or divine power. But even these impressive elements pale beside the enigma of its walls. How did an ancient community deduce the need for moisture barriers, understand soil mechanics, and manipulate mineral mixtures to produce effects used in far later civilizations? No known predecessor in the region demonstrates comparable mastery. No blueprint, no written tradition, no long-standing architectural lineage explains it. The technology appears abruptly fully formed, then disappears. After Temple B's destruction, as though it was a fleeting spark of brilliance that history failed to preserve. This sudden emergence and disappearance raise unsettling questions. Was this knowledge concentrated in a small group of elite builders? Was it linked to ritual practices that may have encoded empirical discoveries into symbolic forms? Or was it lost in the violent transition that ended Temple B's occupation, a political upheaval, a ritual closure, or an ideological shift that rendered its methods obsolete or forbidden? Even today, engineers examining the hydrophobic layer admit that while they can identify its components, they cannot replicate its longevity or resilience without modern additives. The ancient mixture remains cohesive after 5 millennia, while many modern waterproof plasters fail within decades. Such inexplicable durability implies a deeper understanding of material behavior, environmental adaptation, and structural longevity than what history attributes to early Anatolian societies. Temple B forces us to reconsider the linear narrative of human technological progress. It challenges the notion that early civilizations advanced step by step, slowly accumulating knowledge. Instead, it suggests that pockets of extraordinary innovation may have emerged, independently flourished briefly, and vanished without leaving a trace of their intellectual foundations. In this sense, Temple B is not merely an archaeological site. It is a rupture in our timeline, a reminder that ancient minds were capable of achievements radically exceeding our expectations. And the mystery deepens when we consider that the walls, still standing, still coated in their impenetrable shell, have endured more than earthquakes, erosion, and fire. They have survived the erasure of memory itself. They remain the last witnesses of a forgotten ingenuity that once transformed clay earth and mineral into a structural system so advanced that we are only beginning to understand fragments of its logic. The Arslan-Tepta Temple B endures not only as a physical ruin, but as a challenge, a quiet, immovable contradiction to everything we think we know about early human capability. Its walls are more than architecture. They are a message from a civilization capable of engineering brilliance far ahead of its time, leaving behind a masterpiece of moisture control and construction science that continues to humble us thousands of years later.